My entitled mom thinks that my girlfriend is lying about her OCD, as she literally confronted my girlfriend and said that she's faking her illness, putting both me and my girlfriend in a situation where honestly, we simply don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk, and also click the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. For a bit of background, I'm currently doing a conversion course in law after finishing my undergrad this year. Now, due to how high the cost of postgraduate courses are, I decided to move back home for this year and do my course in the university very close to my hometown. My girlfriend lives at home too and works as a shop floor worker, while she herself is also doing a master's course. Now, she's had to deal with 2 chronic health conditions throughout her entire life, an underactive thyroid and OCD that relates to her not wanting to ingest anything that's dirty. This OCD causes her to visually inspect every plate or cutlery that she's about to use, even if it's just been washed. And if she doesn't do this little ritual, she mentally can't allow herself to eat. When she was a teenager, this fear of contamination led to her being extremely underweight and very depressed. My girlfriend has been with me for over 3 years now, and ever since she met her, she's had some dislike towards my girlfriend. Due to this thyroid issue, my girlfriend was quite overweight when she first met my mom, which my mom really disliked, because according to her, she's way too young to let herself go. Now, clearly, I defended my girlfriend to my mom by saying that she has an underactive thyroid, so it's very difficult for her to keep the weight off. But this was simply not good enough. She then accused her of lying about her condition, even accusing her of lying to me about taking medication for her thyroid. Now, I should add that both of my parents come from medical backgrounds. My mom was a psychologist and my dad a radiologist, so they often say things that I can't immediately defend. My mom will say stuff like, "Oh, she obviously has nothing wrong with her thyroid," and then she goes on to be like, "Oh, I've worked with people with her condition, and their hair's all falling out." Meanwhile, my girlfriend has too nice of hair according to my mom. She also says that the medication she's claiming to take isn't even for the condition she claims to have. And this can be very frustrating because they make you feel stupid while you're arguing with them, and then after the matter, I look into it and I see that they were just plain wrong. Anyway, something like this happens every summer when I return home from university. Sometimes it's something my mom perceived as me doing that was horrible, for example, hating her or wanting to see her cry, or it stems back to something my girlfriend has supposedly done. But yesterday, my dad told me that they expect an apology from my girlfriend. I thought to myself, oh god, here we go again with this crap. And I asked him what the problem was this time. He said that mom was very offended by my girlfriend inspecting the cutlery before we ate dinner. And this confused me as to why they were even angry, as this is literally something they'd already been offended by like literally maybe a year ago. When I got home, I said to my mom, "Look, what's your problem? You know that my girlfriend has OCD, and we've already gone through the whole ordeal of everyone being miserable for a few weeks." She then started claiming that my girlfriend doesn't show enough shame over her dinner time ritual for her to actually have OCD, and that in reality, my girlfriend is trying to send a message that my parents' house is dirty and disgusting. I then realized that my mom was in one of her crazy moods again, so I disengaged and I told her to talk to me when she realizes that she's being crazy again. Well, this morning, she came into my room and interrogated my girlfriend on if she actually has OCD. She wanted to know if she had any medication she was taking, or if she was going to therapy, etc. And my girlfriend said yes to all of these and then started to cry. I then jumped in to ask my mom what's the point of making the girl cry over questions I already told her the answers to. She said that she was having a conversation with my girlfriend and that she has a very good relationship with my girlfriend, so I shouldn't interrupt her when she's talking. My mom then went on to say that my girlfriend inspecting cutlery for dirt isn't socially acceptable and that she should get more therapy to get rid of her need to do this. This interaction obviously made my girlfriend very upset because why should she have to prove anything to my mother? I was also upset because in my mind, I'd been able to keep my mental mom world separate from my girlfriend world, and I really don't think that my mom is a bad person, so I try to make sure my girlfriend only sees her when she's acting normal and nice. Now, I really should emphasize that my mom is normally a really nice woman. She's been there for me and supported me when I've been through my own crisis. But when she gets in this accusatory mood, which lasts for like a month, she really is so horrible. There's no point even trying to argue facts with her because she either changes what she's upset about, ignoring what I just said to her, or she takes something as a personal insult, calling me horrible, and that all I want is to see her buckle over and cry. At the end of these periods, she ultimately accepts that she is wrong and blew everything way out of proportion. So this current era of misery will eventually end, but while it is current, myself and my girlfriend will be miserable. So seriously, what should we do about my mom? Because right now I honestly don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom sounds like a piece of work. I would be very frustrated with this if I was in your shoes, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. Especially when you consider how toxic and intrusive she's acting right now. Like, seriously, this is messed up. She has no right to talk to your girlfriend like that. Like, think about it for a second. She's going up to your girlfriend and being like, oh, you're faking your OCD. And it's like, dude, I don't care if you were a psychologist or not. You don't just go up to someone and be like, oh, you're faking it. I can absolutely prove it too. And then start dissecting everything they say. So yeah, your mom's a piece of garbage. I'm so sorry you're dealing with that. And hopefully your girlfriend doesn't have to deal with that for much longer, because the way your mom's acting is absolutely a choice.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I overreacting by removing my mom from my Life 360 application and putting my phone on no share after she literally kept showing up at my house, as well as being super intrusive about my life? Because right now she's super upset with me and I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. So I just moved to a different city last year for a teaching job. When I was 20, my family set up a Life 360 account after a storm. That way everybody could check in really fast. And it honestly just kind of stuck as a habit. At first it felt fine. On occasion, my mom would text and be like, okay, I got home great, but after I moved out, it got really weird. She started commenting on my dots, saying stuff like, oh, you got home late last night, as well as her saying, why were you at that address for 2 hours? I then told her that it made me tense and I would only prefer that she would use it if I sent like an SOS message, but she said I was being dramatic and that she's just caring about what I'm doing. Well, 2 weeks ago, she drove 90 minutes and suddenly surprised me in my apartment lobby, standing there with muffins because she saw my dot home on a Saturday. But I was in sweatshorts, my hair mask was on, and I had a date planned, but she wanted to go on a walk, she wanted to have a long talk with me, and even said that maybe we could get dinner later, but I literally said I can't do it. Well, she cried in the parking lot about how the world is scary and that I'm her baby. I then offered a weekly phone call time and like a once-a-month planned visit. She said okay, but later that night, she texted asking why my dot moved to a new address and asked me who lived there, and it's like, dude, that's literally my date. I felt my chest clamp every time I opened my phone, so I removed myself from the circle and turned Apple sharing to no one. I told her that I love you and that I'm safe and that we could do check-ins by phone call. Well, she's furious and says that I made her feel shut out after she kept me alive all those years. My sister says that I went nuclear when I could have just muted her text messages. So did I overreact by cutting location sharing instead of trying some middle steps in the meantime? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Yeah, this sounds super intrusive. I gotta be completely honest, like your mom is kind of using that application to try and like basically stalk you. And I don't know, that would really bother me as well. So you're definitely not overreacting by being honest with her. And your sister's suggestion, in my opinion, is just way too passive. It doesn't address the problem and it just kind of lets this crap happen. So no, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think your mom absolutely was going way beyond the scope of what this app was actually meant to be used for. An entitled thief literally tries to steal right in front of me at the convenience store I work at, but after doing such a terrible job and after getting caught, this guy makes a break for it and just runs away, proving once and for all that this guy is a very crappy thief. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened and it honestly just makes me want to roll my eyes. The convenience store was pretty dead until this one guy comes in and looks around the store for a bit. We have a small display of chargers and USB cords by the exit door, and it's here that he grabs a random one and proceeds to look around the store for a bit more. Well, it looked like he was getting ready to leave and was heading to the exit. Now, I happen to be walking over in that direction to do a cleaning task as he was literally headed to the door. The charger he grabbed was sticking right out of his pant pocket, as well as a small thing of ice cream sticking out from his sweatshirt pocket. He didn't even do a very good job at hiding them. He was just opening the door and about to step out when I asked him if he was going to pay for them, and it's right here that I busted him. He visibly flinched and turned around and attempted to play dumb. He asked me, pay for what? But I told him the charger and ice cream not so subtly sticking out of his pockets. He then said to me, oh yeah, I put them there because my hands were tired and I needed to rest them. But I didn't believe him at all. He then reluctantly followed me to the counter and I scanned the items. I told him his total and he put a card in the card reader, and guess what? It didn't even go through. It was completely declined. He then asked me if he could wait outside to wait for his partner to send him the money to pay for it. But he didn't really wait for me to answer him because instead, he ran out the door and just booked it, which proves to me once and for all that this guy was a really crappy thief. Yeah, you've got to be in a really crappy place in your life where you can't afford a charger and an ice cream sandwich. Like, come on, dude. What is going on right now? Like, get a job or something. Holy crap. Dude, I seriously can't stand people who steal. Like, that is so frustrating. Here you are just trying to work and do your job, and this guy straight up tried to steal from you. Like, that is so obnoxious. So I'm really glad that you caught him because this guy absolutely deserved to get shut down. Am I the jerk for not checking my phone when a friend in my group bailed to meet up with us and didn't actually show up to the cinema like we were expecting? Because right now he is freaking out on me and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so me and 4 of my friends finally managed to hang out after over a year of everyone being slammed with work or some kind of relationship. Now, we all agreed to meet at this indie cinema doing a marathon of a movie series that we once watched together in college. And right next to the cinema is a cafe that we practically live in. I messaged the group saying, let's meet up at the cinema early to grab seats, and I really thought that everybody would know the drill. 2 of us showed up at the same time, and since the theater wasn't open yet, we went to the cafe to hang out for a bit and sent a photo in our group chat. Well, our other friend that I'll call Rick for the sake of the story showed up a bit later but walked straight into the theater since it was open, and by that time we were already there, and we figured that he'd realize and come over. But our last friend, who I will call Mark, never even showed up. Well, about 20 minutes in, I noticed my phone was still on silent from work, and I saw one missed call from Mark. It turns out he had been sitting in his car in the rain, looking for us outside the cinema, didn't see anybody, didn't even try to call anybody else, and just decided that we had ditched him. He went home and later sent a bunch of angry text messages and a long voice message full of frustration and swearing. And it's here that he said that we ghosted him and that he was sick of being the afterthought. Now, I even offered to pay for a ticket to the next showing, but he said it was too late and just refused. So am I the jerk for not checking my phone and assuming that he would know that we left the cafe and went to the cinema when it opened? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, this is definitely not your fault. Does Mark know how to tell time? Like, what's going on right now? The guy's trying to sit there and be like, oh wow, nobody was here. You all basically abandoned me and I'm just an afterthought. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like anybody in that group feels that way about Mark. So no, you're not the jerk. This guy clearly made like no effort to show up or call anybody else and is now somehow blaming this on you and pretty much everybody else. And that is super toxic in my opinion, and I think that's completely unnecessary. My dad's new wife won't stop calling herself my kid's second mom, because after she said that in front of a bunch of my family members, I decided to put my foot down and correct her in front of everybody, humiliating her in the process, but also setting some clear boundaries that I'm sure she will never forget. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk because I think I pissed off a lot of people in the process, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. For starters, I'm a 32-year-old female and I have a 4-year-old daughter. My ex and I share custody and things are pretty normal. My dad got remarried last year to a woman who I will call Heather, who's 45 years old, and ever since then, she's been acting like she wants to speedrun being a parent to my kid. Now, at first, I didn't really mind, but she started introducing herself to people as my daughter's second mom, or as her bonus mom. My daughter barely knows her and only sees her maybe like twice a month. My daughter calls her Grandma Heather, which Heather absolutely hates, because she says it makes her feel old, and honestly, that is not my problem. Well, we had a family dinner recently, and my daughter tripped and scraped her knee. I was already walking towards her when Heather suddenly ran over, picked her up, and said something like, oh, come here, mommy has you. And when she said this, everybody froze. I then told her not to call herself that ever again. And when I said that, she got defensive and said that she loves my daughter like her own and that I should be grateful my daughter has extra support. Later that night, my dad texted me saying that I embarrassed her and that I should apologize because she's trying her best. But I straight up said no, because calling herself my daughter's mom is crossing a line that I'm literally not okay with. And now as a result, my dad's upset, Heather's crying, and my brother says that I could have said it nicer. Meanwhile, my ex said it was harsh but understandable. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, your dad's new wife is weird. Who in their right mind would be like, oh yeah, I'm your daughter's bonus mother. And by the way, I'm gonna say that in public. Like, dang, you really want to embarrass yourself in front of everybody, don't you? Because I am right there with the original poster, dude. I would absolutely call that crap out. There's no way I'm gonna let that slide. Like, that is some weird behavior. So no, you are not the jerk. Your dad's new wife is kind of weird. And the fact that anybody's upset with you about this situation, in my opinion, is completely crazy. Today, I got some petty revenge on a customer who called into my call center and gave me a terrible attitude. Because for the first time in 10 years, I finally got to hang up and give the greatest comeback line I've ever given in my entire life. And I seriously feel so accomplished and I'm so proud of this. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I used to work at a call center. And when you got a call, your computer would automatically pull up their account. But if it didn't, you would have to look it up with a name or a phone number. And so on that particular day, I got a phone call that didn't pull up an account. So I did what I needed to do by asking for a phone number. Well, the one he gave me didn't work, so I asked for a different number or a different name. This guy on the other end just sighed and said it was the only number he had, and that the last rep he spoke to couldn't find it either. I then asked if he could give me literally anything to go off of, and he said it was just the phone number. So I double-checked the number. I looked through 2 different systems and I still couldn't find it. And it's here that he started patronizing me. He said to me, wow, it's really easy to look up a phone number. Why haven't you found it yet? This is really embarrassing. It shouldn't be that hard. You feel so embarrassed. Are you embarrassed right right now, you should be. Now me, always being eager to stoop to their level, I imitated his voice and I said, yeah, you know what? That is really embarrassing. It's so embarrassing that I can't finish this call. I'm gonna have to send you back to the queue for another rep. And the only thing I heard before the line disconnected was him saying what or wait, but honestly, nobody knows. And the legend has it that he's still waiting in queue for someone else to pick up the line. And I think out of 10 years of customer service, I really do believe this is my best comeback, especially from somebody who is being so condescending. Dude, I relate to this on a spiritual level because I worked in a call center at one point, and holy crap, people are so rude on the phone. I think there's something about like not seeing the person like in front of you that gives you this weird kind of bravery to say whatever you want. And that's obnoxious. Like truly, that's super obnoxious. So I love the way the original poster handled this. I've had managers who don't allow you to do this. So the fact that you could hang up on them in the first place, in my opinion, is a huge deal because nobody deserves to get talked to like that, especially if they're going to be rude. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my brother for gas and parking money after he left me waiting in the car for like 30 minutes? Because even though I agreed to it ahead of time, I honestly feel really disrespected. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this situation involves me, my twin brother, my older brother, and my friend who I will call Dave for the sake of the story. Dave bought discounted tickets to an amusement park from a colleague and invited the three of us to go with him. My older brother offered to drive and asked if we could split the cost of gas and the parking, to which I happily agreed. Now, the day of the amusement park was great. We literally had no issues there. But on the way home, my older brother decided that he wanted to stop at Burger King. Now, just for some important context, I currently have very little money. I'm a full-time student. I'm taking an extra year to finish my studies due to personal reasons, and my student financing hasn't come in yet. So I really need to be careful with my spending. And fast food just isn't something that I want to waste money on right now. And here's the thing. I've mentioned this to my brother and Dave multiple times. Like they really should have known this. I then told them that I didn't want Burger King and just prefer to eat something at home. When we parked, I asked if they could at least take their food to go so we could get home sooner. And I wasn't starving, but I was hungry, and I wanted to get home and make something cheap. Well, my older brother literally just said no. He got out of the car and then just walked inside, with Dave and my twin brother following with him. And you know what? I was really annoyed, so I stayed in the car. And worst of all, they were gone for like 30 minutes while I sat there waiting. We dropped Dave off afterwards and went home, and I didn't cause a scene or argue or even mention anything about not paying, but I just quickly decided at that moment that I wasn't going to pay any more because I felt my brother showed me zero consideration. A while later, my brother sent me a reminder message saying I still owed him for gas and parking, and that's when I wrote back explaining why I'm not paying and that he's not getting that money from me. Well, as you can probably guess, this caused a lot of tension, and even my mom got involved. She said to me, "You wrote a disrespectful message and I don't agree with how you're acting." And now I'm wondering if I even handled this correctly. Like seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now this is all blowing up in my face. Okay, dude, yeah, you are 100% the jerk. You agreed to pay for parking and gas before you guys left for this trip. So for you to do a 180 simply because you're pissed off that they went to Burger King for 30 minutes, like that doesn't give you permission to be like, oh, I'm not gonna pay now, and you can't make me. Like, dude, if I was your older brother, I would be super pissed. So yes, I really do think the original poster's the jerk, and they absolutely need to pay up. My entitled mom is constantly making my birthday all about her, as she always tries to find some way to monopolize my birthday where it has everything to do with her and nothing to do with me. And truly, after dealing with this for so many years, I am so sick of this. Here's what happens. Okay, so last week it was my birthday and my mother did the unexpected. As usually, she would call me sobbing to get my attention. Like seriously, every year she acts like the victim because she doesn't get the attention she wants for my birthday. She will never ask me how I'm doing or what I would like or anything like that. She only thinks of how she feels. She whines and moans about her special day and basically act like I just don't even exist other than just an accessory. She already has a birthday, but it isn't enough. She literally has to monopolize mine as well. She called me early in the morning knowing that I hate waking up early and phone calls and being called spontaneously, and basically whined and wailed at the top of her lungs about how she doesn't get to feel close to her child anymore, all because I'm far away. Then she'll go on to ramble about what she would have wanted to do for my birthday if I was there, like eat steak and seafood, or even paint our nails, even though I don't even like doing those things. I don't live in the same city or even the same state as her anymore, so it's her only way of asserting control over my birthday. She and my father also sent me a gift of some money wired to my account, which is nice, but ever since I was a teenager, they never gave me a single actually thoughtful gift, and only gave me envelopes of money because they couldn't be bothered to find out what I actually liked. After wailing and moaning and complaining about how her child is so far away from her, I finally just cut her short because she tried to say how sad she is and started sobbing uncontrollably, at which point I just literally hung up the phone. And let's be honest, I really should have done it sooner, but I was entirely too groggy to even think straight, let alone even want to deal with her on my own birthday. Yeah, I think we all have family members who act like this every now and then, where they're just like always trying to make everything about them. But the fact that your mom does this every year like clockwork on your birthday specifically, like, dude, get a life. What is going on right now? Like, that truly sounds obnoxious, dude. I can't imagine putting up with that every single year. She calls and tries to make this about herself and just completely ignores you. Like, that is completely unfair. It literally should be about you and not her. And it's honestly just the biggest proof that you need that she literally is super entitled. And this is like the one last shred of control she can have over your life, calling you up and just ruining your birthday by making it about her. Like, that's obnoxious and you don't deserve that in the slightest.
An entitled family comes into our cafe and makes an absolute mess and causes chaos all over the place. And as I'm trying to serve them, they make my life a living nightmare, even going as far as trying to get me fired once my manager gets involved. But thankfully, the gods of karma were on my side, as my manager decides to ban them from his cafe for life. And I've never been more satisfied watching an entitled family get put in their place. Here's what happened. So I worked in a few places, and currently I'm in a cafe, and I do some volunteering in some charity shops as well. So I mention that to say that I do deal with a lot of entitled people almost on a daily basis due to my workaholic lifestyle. Now, some small things which are annoying but happen quite often in a charity shop is where people try to use blue light cards in charity shops when we don't accept them. Now, I get it. You do a good job that helps people, but often doesn't pay well. But everything that we sell is extremely cheap. I mean, we had a lady try to buy Dr. Martens, which we were selling at $6.99, and she tried to use a blue light card. I explained to her that we don't accept blue light cards here, and usually the woman would let out that sigh to make it clear that she's annoyed with you, or make a comment about how ridiculous that is. But no, she instead insisted that we do accept it as every shop does, which is simply not true. Not every shop accepts it, which I do calmly explain to her, and after about 5 minutes of going back and forth, she finally stopped arguing and paid for the shoes that she was buying. Another small thing which is annoying that doesn't happen that often, but enough that I can say confidently it happens at least twice a week, is when a person, usually a man, comes into the cafe that I work at and orders multiple things on the menu and complains when it takes too long. I mean, I'm sorry, but ordering a stack of 5 pancakes, 2 chicken wraps, 2 large Cokes, several waffles, hash browns, sausages, baked beans on toast, not to mention the black pudding, does all take more than 2 minutes. These are annoying, and I could name even more that annoys me, but I can deal with those easily, and they don't bother me too long. Usually, once the person leaves the cafe or the shop, I practically calm down instantly, but what happened today, that is something that nearly made me quit working completely. It starts off as a normal day, but actually it's better than a normal day, as we had a calm day. There were not that many people, and just some small families with teenagers, so we don't have to deal with messy tables or little children running around and yelling. But eventually a large family came in, and there was a total of 8 children, and I would say the youngest was around 4 years old, with the oldest being about 7. Clearly this wasn't all their children, perhaps a small party, though I doubt that it was. They asked for a table for 20 people. There was only 9 of them, so it was a little confusing, and I explained that we don't have tables big enough for a table of 20, but we have a table that can fit 15 people if they want that one instead. That table is usually booked, but it wasn't today, and trust me, I wish that it was, as they might have went to another cafe and bothered someone else. So while it was lucky for them, it was not for me, the other waitress, and our other chef. It took around 15 minutes to get all the kids to the table. The parents were not helping, and usually, if kids are running around, we do not do anything. But these kids were climbing everywhere. Some of these 6-year-olds almost made it into the kitchen if it wasn't for the entitled mother of this group yelling at them that they can't go into the kitchen, as they might supposedly poke an eye out. Now, bear in mind, we don't have anything around these 6-year-olds' eye level that would poke an eye out, but we do have a lot of boiling water, knives, and extremely hot stoves. So the whole kitchen is quite dangerous, in my opinion, for a bunch of 6-year-olds. But that is all the parents did to control these kids. So I decided to ask them and said, "Do you mind calling your children to the table, as they are causing a disturbance in the cafe?" They responded by saying, "There isn't anyone else here, they are fine. If you have such an issue with it, you can go get them back to the table. Now, I was generally very shocked at this. My coworker, who we will call Jess, was on her break, but she was kind enough to end her break early to help me get all these kids to the table. I am so thankful for that as well because I am not good with kids. I only managed to get 2 of the kids back to the table, and she managed to get the rest back with ease. And once we got the last kid back, the one who had dirt on their face as he was digging up the plants, these entitled parents had the audacity to say something to us that honestly blew my mind. They looked at us and said, "Well, that took you long enough." Now, we do have a very strict boss who isn't in yet, so we didn't want to kick them out before our boss could actually see what was happening, because he would be on the customer side before even checking the security footage and checking with us to see what actually happened. So we just tried our best to bottle up how we were feeling and hope that our boss would come back in time to actually deal with them. Now, for the sake of this story, I'll be calling my boss by the name of Ross. Ross and Jess are not the real names of my coworkers. Now, according to Jess, as she worked here longer than me, she said that we only had one person kicked out and banned from the cafe, and they were not as bad as these people, so that got my hopes up that I will never have to deal with these people ever again. Now, let's skip forward a few minutes to when the entitled dad whistled me over like a dog. Now, I did make a comment about this. I said to them, "Please do not whistle at me to get your attention. You can call me by my name." He scoffed at this and proceeded to say their order. It was a large order, but it was expected for a large group and wasn't nearly as bad as I expected. I thought it would be more as they were being so rude, but I tried thinking positively that perhaps they had a bad day and they were just overwhelmed with all these bad kids. Now, this order had a lot, so Jess decided to help out the chef. We will call the chef Eric, also not his real name. Now, Jess isn't the best cook, but she only did the easy things like boiling the eggs for him or even making the toast while he made the pancakes and waffles. During this time, I tried sitting at one of the booths not close to them, but I could see their whole table and I did keep a close eye on them. I thought this was a smart idea, and it would have been if they didn't need something every 5 seconds. They would say stuff like, "How long will this take? Are you allowed to be sitting down during your work hours? We need a new cup. These are way too small. There isn't nearly enough ice in my water. We want new cutlery. These are dirty." Now, I can confirm that they are not dirty, and they didn't even notice that I gave them the same cutlery back to them, as I knew that they were clean. And before anybody says that they might have dropped it or something like that, I had my eye on them the whole time to make sure they didn't cause any chaos, and the cutlery that they wanted to change was only the entitled parents' cutlery. Those were practically left untouched. They then started complaining and asking if the pancakes had any eggs in it, and they just asked that out of curiosity, not because of any dietary restrictions or some kind of like allergy. One of them then said, "Do you have a spare hairband? Mine broke." "Oh wait, I got one in a bag, never mind." And honestly, this was so annoying, and I felt as if they knew what they were doing, as once I sat down, every single time they would call me over in that annoying teacher's voice that made me want to rip my ears off my head. But despite all that, I kept calm, answered all their questions with a smile on my face. Now, here in the United Kingdom, we don't get tipped as nicely as Americans. Quite often, I don't even get tipped. So I did all of this expecting perhaps a small tip for dealing with them. It took around an hour to get all their food done. I mean, we wanted to make sure that it all comes out at the same time, and we made sure that it was all warm, but the eggs and toast for the parents were finished quicker than expected, so they came out 5 minutes earlier than the rest of the food. And it's right about here that everything broke out into chaos. The mom chimes in and says, "Where's the rest of the food?" I explained to them that they will be right out in just a moment. The mom said to me, "How long? Exact time, please. We are not mind readers." She then gives me that dirty smile that makes you feel so angry, as you can tell that they aren't being nice at all. I look at them and I say it should be just about 5 minutes. And I try to just laugh this off, as usually it works with the rude people that I serve. The dad then chimes in and says, "Why is it taking so long? We've been here for hours and you want us to wait even longer?" I say to them, "Well, the tickets say the time that they were printed, and I know you've been waiting around 30 minutes, but that is to be expected with 4 deluxe 5-stack pancakes and 3 deluxe waffles. And you did request all the food to come out at the same time, so we did try to time it, but your 2 meals just finished quicker than expected, so we didn't want it to get cold." Now, I did expect them to interrupt me, but they actually let me say all of this, so I thought they might understand that we are doing our job as best as possible and didn't want to serve them cold food. The mom then makes a really snide remark. She says, "You are a chef and you don't know how long it takes to boil an egg? Pathetic." Now, at this point, I am a little bit annoyed but I'm still trying to be nice. I say to her, I'm not the chef, and he just made one small mistake, and we are really sorry about it. The dad then chimes in and says, you seem very sorry with that attitude. I respond by saying, I'm sorry if I gave you an attitude, I've just had a long day. Now, for the record, I've not had a long day, but I need to stay calm, as I know that my boss will be back soon, and if I were to yell at them like I wanted to, I just know he would walk in and fire me on the spot. The mom then says, we also had a hard day, but you don't see us being rude. The dad then said that he just wants the pancakes out right now. So I said, okay, I'll go check and see if they're done. I leave and I can hear them snicker and talking about me being incompetent and unable to do small tasks. But I started to feel as if luck was on my side, as once I got into the kitchen, I see Ross entering from the back at the same time as me. I explain everything as quick as possible. The pancakes were almost done and they just needed a plate. He was very understanding and told me to stay at the counter at the front and serve any new customers, and he will serve this family. And what happened next was honestly amazing. So Ross goes over and serves the family, and as he does that, I can see them complain, and I heard them talk even more garbage about me, saying that I'm so bad and that they need to replace me. Now, I could see Ross getting annoyed, but he was doing his job. He didn't put on his manager badge, and instead had another coworker's badge on, so I realized he was pretending to be a normal employee just so they wouldn't start acting differently, as he owns the cafe. When the food all gets there, the kids are extremely messy, even wiping their dirty hands from all the ice cream and chocolate sauce on the chairs, and these chairs had fabric on them and can easily be stained if left dirty. I saw the parents laughing at this and not telling them off and not even saying anything to the kids. Then I saw the kids starting to get up and run around again. Now Ross already knows how bad they were when they first were running around, and now they're covered in food. So this really is worst case scenario. Before I go to stop them, Ross tells me, that's my table now, I'll deal with it. So he goes over to these parents and talks to them. He says to them, tell your children to sit down, they are making a mess. And you know what? He got the same response as they gave me. And this is right when he says, I'll get you your bill. At this point, I heard some arguing, because apparently they didn't want to pay yet or leave. So he explains how they are being kicked out as their behavior is making the cafe a mess and making people not wanting to come into the cafe. Now this felt like one of those stories you would find online when they said, you can't kick us out, you're not the manager. And that's when I saw Ross smirk. He said to them, I am the manager and you are being kicked out. And if you don't leave, you will be banned from ever eating here ever again. Me and Jess were watching and we loved this. If we had popcorn, it would have been perfect. They refused to leave for a few minutes, but they did end up paying. And when they were leaving, he yelled out, you are banned forever. Never come back to my cafe ever again. My manager then swore at these people, and that's right when this entitled father turns around and quickly yelled out, we have children, don't swear in front of them. Now this is where I cut in and I say, you were swearing in front of them earlier. Now Ross did tell me off for this comment, but not in front of them, as he didn't want to make them feel as if they were in the right, as they were not. But they did argue with Ross for a bit, and let me just hit you with the highlights. They did not want to leave, they wanted a refund for bad service, but Ross was saying they pay for the food and did not tip, and since they ate all the food, they won't be getting any kind of refund. This scenario repeats over and over again until he threatens to call the police, and thankfully they finally leave. Now he didn't check the security footage, but he said judging from their behavior, he knew for a fact that what we said was the truth, which was very nice to hear. And honestly, I'm so glad that I never have to deal with them ever again. Wow, that story's insane. I seriously love it when a manager steps in and does the right thing. This could have gone really poorly if the manager was not on their side. I have definitely had managers in the past who have not had my back, and it's only made issues like this even worse. Like seriously, you're trying your best to keep your cool because you know you're not the person that gets to tell these people off or that gets to ban them from the store if they act up. But it's so nice when a manager sees exactly the way these people are acting, because it makes your life so much easier when you're explaining that yeah, these people are acting up and they're acting like jerks the entire time. So good for you for keeping your cool as long as you could, as well as your manager for kicking them out, because those people were being so disrespectful and they absolutely did not deserve to stay at your cafe. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband is very resentful of my career and basically is implying that he wants me to quit my job, and I'm now so angry angry and frustrated over his behavior that I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband has given me an ultimatum of sorts to quit my job. And at this point, I'm so confused on what to do, and I need a game plan when I fly home from a business trip in 3 days. We met and fell hard in love when I was in my escapist phase of my life. I was a high achiever with a graduate degree with lots of family pressure to succeed, but weary of the rat race. He was an artist, and he was smart, curious, and living cheap. Our first couple of years were blissful as we lived a more bohemian lifestyle, then went through a couple tough years as I supported him through grad school. But eventually we settled, married, and bought a small fixer-upper house with my grandma's inheritance, and we also had 2 beautiful kids. It was somewhat of a running joke that I'm the breadwinner and he's the struggling artist, but it didn't matter. We were best friends and he's a great dad. I mean, we were so happy. Because we have the freedom of not having a mortgage, life was pretty low pressure until we had kids and our expenses soared. With hindsight, I realized that part of choosing him as a husband was to rebel against my strict upbringing or to marry someone opposite to my father. Now, I accept those psychological components, and in another life, maybe I would be wiser to choose someone who's more compatible with me on a practical level. But now we are a family, and we still adore each other, and I don't believe that anyone is 100% compatible anyways. I am willing to put in the effort to make this work. Now, back to the story. I floated around different unchallenging jobs, but around the time that I became pregnant with my second, I got a huge opportunity in a startup. This involves managing accounts in many foreign countries and quite a bit of stress, but it is well paid, and it's much more than we ever made combined. Plus, it's super interesting work. I get to work from home and pick up the kids at around 4 o'clock, even though I start early, and he has to take care of them in the mornings. Well, when I took this job, he was less than thrilled. It required him to stop teaching full-time at an art school, which he didn't love, and was a poorly paid, dead-end job anyways. We agreed that with our higher income, he could teach part-time, get a studio, and focus on his art, which is something he always wanted to do. And that way, he could be the primary parent in case a kid is sick and needed to stay home. And you know what? A lot of couples have this kind of arrangement when their kids are little. Generally, women are the more flexible parent, so the higher earner can focus on their job. From day one, this situation has made him unhappy, and it's just getting worse. He has felt so insecure and so resentful that he now takes it out on me. He blames me constantly for working too much, as well as being too stressed and not being available, and also not being supportive of him. And you know what? I have to admit, it's harder to be attracted to a jealous, insecure man. I feel like I've been extremely patient, trying to fill everybody else's needs, trying to end my workdays early to be with my family and not talk about work, and canceling almost all work trips for close to 2 years. But the harsh reality is that my job is stressful, my husband doesn't contribute financially, and I still do a lot of housework and childcare. And on top of that, he's incredibly unhappy. If I think about it too hard, I feel used and very angry. I think the deeper problem for him is that he feels like a failure in his professional work and takes it out on me. Last year, he worked with a career coach, and I thought it would lead to him applying for some jobs. But instead, he started a small business that is struggling to take off, and he used our savings to get that started. I just don't have the capacity to help him grow the business, even though he wishes that I could. He says that he feels unsupported and unloved. This month, I had to go on an 8-day work trip, the first I ever accepted with this job. It was decided well in advance, and I made arrangements for him to get help from a nanny, which I wouldn't hire if I was single parenting. I filled the fridge and freezer for him, and I left my kids heavy-hearted. And things seemed to be okay until the little one got sick one night and nobody slept. That morning, he told me on the phone that he couldn't live this way, that I'm not the person I was when we met, and that things needed to change right now. Basically, an ultimatum for me to quit my job. Now, I was sad more than surprised, but also angry at him for making me feel guilty about working to support our family. I could technically quit this cool job and find something less demanding. Like I said, we don't have a mortgage, which is a huge privilege in terms of financial freedom. We could live very frugally again like the good old days, and I would have to take the 1-year-old out of daycare and split his care with my husband. But it would also feel like he was dragging me down and not wanting me to be successful. And that's the part that makes me tick. Him not wanting me to be successful at what I do. I look at all my coworkers on this trip who also have young kids, and I know their partners are back home, understanding that this is just part of life and work. I don't know what to say or how to say it. When he tells me that he feels hurt, I feel sorry for him, but also very angry. I want to blurt out and say, get over it. Life is hard, get a job, and grow up. But when I've alluded to that in the past, he has blown up and told me I should leave him and marry a lawyer or something like that. I'm just tired. I'm so tired. I just want peace. I want someone to recognize everything I've been doing to keep it all together. I want him to be happy, but I'm apparently never saying the right thing ever. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It really seems like your husband's being super selfish. Like either he has like amnesia or something like that, or he is seriously forgetting all the work you do to keep this family afloat. Here you have a wonderful job that is like a career advancement in your life, and this guy's acting like it's the worst thing to ever happen to him. Like seriously, buddy, what is your problem? You're a starving artist who worked at an art school, and you don't make hardly any money to try and keep things going in the house. Your wife getting a job like this would be like the perfect opportunity to do something independent. Like, why does this guy seriously not see the benefit of his wife being the breadwinner? Because you know what? If I was in his shoes, I would be so grateful that my wife had that job. I would step up to the plate and do what I need to do to keep the family going. Because last I checked, this is a team effort. And according to the original poster, she stood beside this guy when they basically had no money and they didn't know what they were doing. So for the husband of this story to act like, oh man, this is such a burden on me, while also trying to run this weird pity party, in my opinion is completely pathetic, and he really does need to get over himself. So hopefully this all works out for you, and that this guy doesn't try to make you quit your job. Because right now you have a really good thing going, and it would be such a shame to throw it all away just because of your husband's insecurities. My entitled manager refuses to do his job ever, always finding some convenient excuse to avoid getting stuff done and leaving me with all the entitled Karens that wanted to talk to him. So I decided to get revenge when the district manager was at our store, and as a result, my manager ended up getting fired. Here's what happened. So I once worked at a pharmacy chain. To give some idea of how long ago this was, digital photography was in its infancy. A 6-megapixel photo was state of the art, and 1 hour photo processing was in its heyday. I worked in the photo department, which doubled as customer service and or the complaint department, and managers had to do all refunds since it required a key. The problem was that most managers didn't enjoy having to put up with a typical customer who wanted refunds and would often try to put it off if there was anybody, customer or otherwise, they could possibly help. Now, I owe that job a certain debt of gratitude, as it taught me a lot about how to deflect blame from yourself and instead send it to people who are higher up in the chain of command, which is usually where it belonged. Anyways, one day the PA system decided that it was being too quiet when employees used it to page, and suddenly any announcement we made was loud enough to be heard at the fast food drive-thru next door. And I'm guessing that a software update of some sort went sideways. I managed to figure out within a day or so that holding the phone backwards but otherwise speaking normally when paging would result in the PA system producing a more reasonable volume, as opposed to trying to find the right distance and vocal volume worked. Well, I shared this with my coworkers, and it became the new norm for paging announcements, and thus began my reign of terror over the management team. Now, nothing had changed about their lack of enthusiasm in handling refunds, but when they tried to pretend that I didn't exist, I would pull out my trump card and play it against them. And basically, I would say something like, do I need to turn this phone around and page it? Because trust me, I'll do it. It was usually enough to convince them to stop ignoring the angry Karen and quickly finish up with whatever they were doing. One particular manager decided he was going to call my bluff one day. He finished up with a customer that he was working with and came by to let me know that he was going on break, having waited for the refund customer to be about 20 feet away looking at something. I waited for the door to the employee area close, then I went over to the customer, who was a Karen through and through. And I honestly don't really blame the manager for not wanting to deal with her. And it was right then that I suggested she might want to plug her ears, because what I was about to do next is going to be very loud. I then followed through with my threat towards the manager, and I jumped on the PA system and I said the following: Mr. Manager, please come to photos for a refund. The entire store went dead silent for a good 4 or 5 seconds. Even the music was quieted for a moment while the software parsed what I had just done to the PA system. The manager came out, did the refund, gave me the dirtiest look that you could possibly imagine, and then went back to take his break. Well, fast forward a few weeks and the PA system still hasn't been fixed. Other managers, having heard that I was in fact not afraid to follow through with my threats of using excessive volume, practically materialized from the ether, sometimes several at once, as soon as I made the page that I needed one of them to help a customer. But the one I actually did hurt the eardrums of of, on the other hand, has not learned his lesson and is again taking his time and coming to my counter to issue a refund. And this is one of my regulars. It's not even the same customer. This manager lazily strolls right past the counter and goes straight to the stock room saying that he'll be back in a few minutes. I then let him know that I'm gonna turn this phone right around on him, but he says again that he'll be right back while maintaining his nonchalant pace. Now, what I didn't realize was that the district manager was at the store at the time. He overheard me saying that, and I probably turned pale when I saw him come out of an aisle and head my way. He asked me, "What did you say?" But he sounded more confused or curious than upset. So I explained and said, "The PA system only works right if you hold the phone backwards and talk into the back of the mouthpiece when you page. They will hear us next door if we page holding the phone normally. And I've got a customer waiting for a refund." Now, the customer tried to wave it off and be like, "Oh, it's all good, I can wait." But the district manager wasn't having it. He said that customers come first and that the manager is checking on something that he asked him about. The district manager then gives me the go-ahead. He says, "Call for the refund, and this time, don't hold the phone backwards." So I decided to maliciously comply. I picked up the phone. I said to the customer, "You may want to plug your ears." Now, the customer thought I was joking, but did so anyways, but the district manager did not. I then said the following again into the PA system. I said, "Mr. Manager, please come to the photo department for a refund." Now, again, there was a stark silence. The manager came out of the stockroom, ready to lay into me about having used the PA system in such a way, as well as hurting his eardrums again. But he held his tongue when he saw the district manager scowling in his direction. He did the refund, the district manager apologized for the wait, all while staring daggers at the manager, and said he wanted to talk to him in the stockroom after the customer had left. I was amused to note that the manager didn't dawdle when heading to the stockroom this time, walking as fast as he could without actually running. The district manager took a couple of steps to follow, but then paused and asked me how long the PA system had been doing that. And after I told him it's been going on for about a month or so, he stated, "Well, I saw the fixed ticket for it a ways back, but I didn't realize that it was this bad. Don't worry, I'll escalate it." He then turned and followed the manager into the stockroom. Now, here's the craziest part about all this. The PA system was replaced before the end of the week, but so was the manager, and thus ended my reign of terror over the managers, though it made enough of an impact that they decided not to ignore refund pages after that. You know, just in case I or another photo clerk decide to find a more horrifying way of ensuring that they comply and do their job. Wow, that's an awesome way to get back at a manager. Like, seriously, that manager was not doing their job. They saw that there was a need, but instead of addressing that need, they decided to run away because they didn't want to deal with Karens. But like, sure, I don't think anyone wants to deal with an entitled Karen, but you are literally a manager. This is your job to take care of these situations. So honestly, good for the original poster for stepping up and getting this all taken care of. And obviously, I don't think you were trying to get anybody fired, but truly, in my opinion, if someone is not doing their job and that as a result is affecting your job, then that person absolutely should be replaced.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My boyfriend is constantly talking to other women in our relationship, constantly allowing messages from his ex-girlfriends, as well as liking bikini pictures of women on Instagram. And after dealing with this for several months now, I'm finally at a breaking point, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I met each other in May of 2022 when I was passing by his city on a trip. I was happily single for 5 years and not keen on a relationship, and he had broken up a 2.5-year relationship 1 year ago. We got along very well in our ways of thinking, as well as what we intended to do with our lives. He started messaging me every single day when I left his country and asked me to pass by his city again before going back to my country. So you know what? I did just that, and we had an amazing few days. Once I moved permanently to his country, again, he asked me to spend a few days with him in his city, and so I did just that. I later found out he saw his ex, and she stayed at his flat, where they lived together for a year, the same day that I left, and this was in the beginning of August. Well, he apologized and recognized he should have told me but was afraid of my reaction, but swore that nothing happened. She simply is from out of town and had nowhere else to stay. He also said that we are not boyfriend and girlfriend, but recognized after months that he was manipulating me to think that we were in a relationship. In the end of August, he came to the city I live in with his friends, and he would stay here for 2 weeks after his friends left with me. During this time, he confessed to having hooked up with someone he met at a party and pretended to be surprised by my being upset. Again, after months, he admitted he was wrong. On the 3rd of September, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and in October, moved permanently to where I am where we live together. Now, during this time, many times things were really great, but there were some things that really rubbed me the wrong way. For starters, he liked bikini pictures of women on Instagram. Now, he does not see anything wrong with it, but stopped doing that because I do see something wrong with that. He also invited me to go to an art exhibition and omitted that the artist was his ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend. He also didn't tell me that his ex has a debt with him and they are constantly communicating about a payment. Well, yesterday, I went to use his computer for a meeting and he had forgotten that his WhatsApp was open. His ex, who's not the same one, sent him a picture and asked if she looked good. And it's obvious that she was looking for some kind of validation, but he not only said yes, he also said, "If you send me pictures like this and my girlfriend's around, you're gonna start World War III. She would say something like, "Why? Because of a picture?" But then he responded by saying, "She'll be jealous because my beautiful ex is sending me pictures." And she replied by saying, "Yeah, and you're responding." Then she mentioned the project my boyfriend and I are working on, and I saw they had a couple of messages above, but the rest my boyfriend had erased. He erases his messages just like any other piece of garbage person would do. I don't think I can get over his constant breaches of trust and his need for validation and keeping doors with women open. What should I do? Your boyfriend's a piece of garbage. I can't believe he's acting like this, and honestly, what you're going through is so unfair. Think about it. He's talking to a previous girlfriend behind your back, and he's calling her beautiful and pretty and all this other stuff, and he obviously doesn't see that this is a big problem. Like, he's pretending to be surprised when you're upset, as if somehow the problem's with you instead of him. Like, he's the one doing these things, it's not you. So for him to be willingly open to all this kind of like validation from other women he's dated, that in my opinion is super toxic, and you do not need that for a second. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would want my partner to value me instead of other exes that they've been with. And the fact that your boyfriend isn't doing that honestly is a complete shame. My parents have stopped talking to me after I got married and moved away. And after being so close to them for so long in my life, I feel like I don't even know them at all, as they have completely cut me and my husband out of their life. And after reviewing my options and trying to find some kind of solution, I am seriously now at a loss and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I used to be incredibly close to my parents, especially my mom. This changed though when I got engaged in June of 2021 and things started going downhill with my parents. My parents seemed to be disappointed in the engagement ring I got, which is not a real diamond by the way, the type of wedding we were planning where only my parents were invited and we basically just eloped right there on the spot. Not to mention my husband and his family not being as well off. I mean, they seemingly had a problem with literally everything going on. During this time period, my parents' expectations were difficult to manage, and they often said rude things to my husband and now myself. Now, as a side note, but somewhat relevant, my parents are immigrants and started out with just the shirts on their back. Neither of them completed high school because they had to work. Growing up, we didn't have much, and my parents sacrificed everything they could so that my siblings and I could have a better future. Because of this, there was never an option for my siblings and I to be average. We were all pushed towards university and had to make something of ourselves. Now that my parents are in their 60s, all their saving and penny pinching has paid off in the sense that they have millions from investments. And this is mostly from real estate that has skyrocketed in value and generates income from rent. Now back to the unfolding of events, and during our engagement, my fiance and I decided we couldn't afford housing in our high cost of living city, mostly because renting and owning was way too expensive. We told our parents that we're going to move to someplace affordable after we get married, but if they want to help us stay near them, we need help with a down payment so that we can afford a mortgage. My husband's parents said no, but that they'll support us in our move, mostly because we would need an incredible amount of money to have a mortgage be affordable on our salaries. And when it came to my parents, they offered us one of their rentals at a slight discount. Now, we were happy with the options, but ultimately decided moving to a cheaper city was our best option. Plus, we didn't want my parents as landlords. But you know what? This was the needle that broke the camel's back. In June of 2022, we ended up getting married, and in August of 2022, we moved across the country to another major city that was much more affordable and had jobs in our industries. After moving, my parents slowly stopped answering my phone calls and my text messages. And when they did answer, they were short and didn't have many positive things to say. Typically, they would just ask when we were moving back. Well, fast forward, and it was in February of 2023, after after trying to reach out and not getting callbacks that I finally decided to stop chasing after them. And in return, they still to this day have not called me. I never expected them to enact a silent treatment, and this I feel has gotten really out of hand. My siblings have told me that my parents will never reach out to me, and they are incredibly mad. And I don't really know what I would say if I call them up, or even if they would answer in the first place. I'm not really sure how to mend this fence in my life, but my thoughts are to try and reach out so all this craziness can stop. I'm not sure what they would be receptive to other than me moving back. I mean, if an olive branch doesn't work, then I'm content to put this to rest and just try and move on. Wow, that's really petty behavior from your parents. First of all, based on the way that your parents act, I don't blame you for saying, you know what, I don't want you as a landlord. I feel like that would be an invasion of privacy left and right, and you and your husband would never have any time to yourself. Your parents seem like the type of people who would definitely cross all your boundaries and then act like you're the one with the problem when you get upset. So in my opinion, getting out of there and moving to a more affordable city is absolutely something that I would have done if I was in your shoes. Now, when it comes to the relationship with your parents, I think reaching out might not be a bad idea at all, because obviously you want some kind of conversation to come out of this. You want to talk to them and be like, hey, listen, let's figure this out and squash this beef. Because if you really think about it, the way they're acting is really unreasonable. Like, I just don't see a logical reason for them to cut you off entirely and act like, oh yeah, you're the problem child, all because you didn't want to live in their house and you didn't want to live in the same city that was already so expensive. So in my opinion, with all things considered, I don't think you did anything wrong by branching out and getting away from your parents. Because based on the way you're acting right now about you making your own decisions, I'm willing to bet that they would have cut you off regardless, even if you did live in their home. My elderly dad, who I've been caregiving for, is making my life absolutely unbearable. And now I'm in the process of trying to move out, and of course, he's making this process as difficult as possible. Here's what happened. So I've had issues with my dad's narcissism throughout my entire life. 3 years ago, my mom passed away unexpectedly. I was closest to her and my family, and we all miss her so deeply. Since her passing, I have stepped up to help my dad with meal prep, as well as general appointments for the last year. And I even ended up moving in with my dad to help him full-time as a caregiver. I gave up my apartment at the time. I had just gone to school to finish my degree prior to this, and basically put my life on pause to help him out. Now here's the thing, I knew what I was getting into, because I had issues with him prior, because he is narcissistic and difficult at times, but I also knew that he was in a vulnerable state, having been in the hospital several times earlier in the year, and I thought it was the right decision at the time. He said he would give me $500 a month as payment, which I agreed to at the time, but looking back now, it wasn't nearly enough for the amount that I should have been receiving, for the amount of care I was giving. Several months ago, I told him I'm not comfortable with the amount of payment per month, and at minimum, I would need $1,100 a month. Now, this is still a very good deal for him, basically getting his daughter to caretake for him, essentially full-time for that amount a month. A lot of professional caretakers would be several thousand at least. It was an uphill battle. He fought having to give me that amount and thought that I should just be doing it without worrying about money. 2 months ago, after conflict over time was building up for me, I told him that I'm going to be looking for apartments again, and I want to move and he will need a professional caregiver. At the time, he basically freaked out and was trying to get me to stay without directly saying that. He liked having everything done for him and didn't want a stranger in his home. I told him that this was my plan and that I was going to be looking at places. I also started to look at jobs. Things got put on hold after his health issues increased, however, so I had to pause my job search as he was having more immediate issues that I needed to take care of. The issue is that I've been financially dependent on him since I have moved into this place. Prior to that, I was in school and basically put my life on pause afterwards, and now it creates a very tricky dynamic with the money issue. I had been looking at some apartments recently, but finding it difficult to find one that's priced reasonably. Within the last few days, my dad has suddenly been asking me a lot about when I'm leaving and also telling me that he wants me to leave. I found this to be very strange, being that even when there was no issue recently, he's been trying to push me out the door. I feel that it's a control thing because he has a lack of control in his life with getting older and having health issues, that he's still trying to assert his authority and make it seem like he's having me leave instead of me leaving on my own. However, this has created a very anxiety-based dynamic for me the last few days. Obviously, he told me that if I don't leave by next month, he's not going to financially support me anymore. Obviously, I do want to leave, being that I originally told him this, but at the the same time, I do not want to be pressured into settling for an apartment that's either too expensive for me to afford or that it's simply something that I don't like. It's very strange to me that he's suddenly trying to push me out the door and basically trying to derail my finances. I gave up the last year to help him and caregive for him, and he has no appreciation. I know that the logical answer is to obviously find a job right now, and that is what I'm trying to do, but the issue is that he is still expecting me to caregive for him in the interim before moving. I'm feeling very anxious as I don't like this type of pressure. I would honestly love suggestions about this. Trying to talk to him is increasingly difficult. He gaslights me, and he basically bullies me into submission more times than not. Yesterday when this was happening, he called me an idiot, he told me to shut up, he told me that he knows how I am, and that I would never find a place if it weren't for him pushing me around. He has offered to pay for the first month or two of rent, but at the same time, I need time to actually find a proper paying job now without any kind of pressure. Now, like I said, obviously I more than anyone want to leave, but the issue is that he's trying to now push me out the door and act like he's going to kick me out on the street when I've been caregiving for him if I don't find a place within the next few weeks. What should I do? Honestly, this sounds like an awful situation. Here you are giving all your time and energy, and your dad is basically taking advantage of it. And now that you're trying to move out, he's trying to gaslight you into thinking that he's the one pushing you out the door. So honestly, I really feel for your situation, and hopefully you're able to find something soon, because the way your dad is treating you is so unfair, and I don't blame you for wanting to move out. My entitled mother makes my life and my sister's life a living nightmare, treating us like garbage while also leaving for 2 weeks at a time without any kind of extra food or electricity to get us by. And now, despite the fact that I feel our relationship is completely destroyed, she is now demanding that I forgive her outright, as she believes that she deserves forgiveness no matter what, despite the fact that I know that she has not changed. And now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not for still being mad at my mother and the way that she treated me. Here's what happened. So 2 years ago, my mother started dating a man, despite expressing our reluctance to meet him because she was a serial dater and we did not want to get attached. They forced the situation, making my sisters and me very uncomfortable. Shortly after, he began staying over regularly, and my mom's personality changed significantly after meeting him. And this guy would also make disgusting comments about my mother in front of us, and she would just laugh. Well, about a year ago, they came home after a date, and I, busy with a timed online university assignment, just shouted out hello from my desk. 20 minutes later, with not a word to me or my sister, I heard the outdoor gate slam and them leaving just as I finished my assignment. I went out to check what was happening, but they were already gone. 10 minutes after they left, my sister and I received a horrible voice message where my mother accused us of being disrespectful and ungrateful and how we do not want her to be happy. She also accused us of not greeting either of them when they came inside, but we both absolutely did. She left for a week and a half, leaving us with 4 days worth of food in the freezer and no money for electricity or any way to get my sister to school during this week. And she also didn't tell us when she was going to return. She wanted us to apologize for being brats and not greeting them before she would consider coming back to the house. When we finally talked, she insisted that we were disrespectful for not dropping everything and meeting them at the front door to greet them when they came back, and also that neither of us greeted them in any kind of form, which again, this is not true because I did and I heard my sister greet them as well. They are the ones that didn't respond. I mean, the house was so small, so it's impossible that they didn't hear us. Mind you that this subject was never broached previous to this incident, and in all my years, my mother never required us to greet her at the door like a butler. The power was running low as well as the food, so we bit the bullet and just apologized, even though we clearly were not guilty of what she's accusing us of. I mean, my sister was still in high school, and I was in my first year of university, so neither of us had the financial capacity to keep a household running. Also, during this talk, I informed her that our relationship would never be the same. Well, recently, my mother questioned why our relationship remains distant, and that's when I reminded her that I had warned her about the lasting impact of our argument. Trust in her as a reliable parent was shattered, and I couldn't simply forget the 2 weeks that she abandoned us, all based on false accusations. While she urged me to move on, I emphasized that she created this distance, and I couldn't force a connection that no longer existed. Well, she called me a jerk for holding this over her head. She says that she's still my mother and deserves forgiveness, but despite her being my mother, I believe that the trust has been irreparably damaged, and she's given me no indication that she's changed. So honestly, Seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Should I just forgive my mother as it is, instead of demanding that she apologize first? What should I do? I do not think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, I don't blame you for feeling distant from your mom. She literally betrayed your trust and your sister's trust. She left for 2 weeks, all because you didn't greet her at the door like a butler, which by the way, I've never heard of anybody ever having to do that. I bet it was probably her stupid boyfriend who was trying to convince her that she deserves way more respect. I mean, this guy already makes disgusting jokes around you. It's honestly not past me that he would try something like this as well. So truly, with all things considered, I do not think that you're the jerk in the slightest, because your mom's actions and the way she treated you and your sister is completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for feeling distant.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
An entitled Karen demands to see a patient during a COVID shutdown, completely ignoring our protocol in the process and making a massive fuss over something that was out of my control. Here's what happened. So this happened during COVID in 2022 when all hospitals were not allowing any visitors. I worked in a rehabilitation hospital and we were the only hospital in the valley that was allowing window visits. The patient will stay inside while the friends and family will be outside, and they would communicate by being on the phone. It was just something that we tried to do to help the patient have more support being in rehab. I was the main person of contact and the one who had to wheel the patient downstairs and back up. I was also the person who gives a small orientation to patients when they first arrive. To give a background of how the window visit works, we did first come, first serve, and it's 30 minutes each session. We went by time slots, which is something that I would explain to patients and family. Preferably, this would be scheduled 2 days ahead of time, or if not, 1 day ahead of time before 1:00 p.m. The schedulers are always working on the patient's therapy schedule for the next day, so they usually want any notifications about blocking out a certain time frame by 1:00. Patients are aware of needing 15 hours of therapy and a 7-day grace period. So once the schedules are out, they try not to do any cancellation if necessary. So far, I haven't had any issue with any family members or patients. They are pretty good about giving me a week notice for the time and day. This particular patient was admitted in the evening, so I went in the next day and gave the patient orientation and explained about the window visits. I reminded the patient about making sure to call me at least a day ahead of time if the family wants to have a window visit. The patient said they understood, and the next day, the patient's son called my office wanting to make a window visit for the next day. I made the arrangements and explained to him about the rules again, and he said that he understands. At this point, it was now 2:00 p.m., and I suddenly got a phone call from the receptionist. She tells me that a family member is here for window visits for that patient. Now, usually when I have window visits, I send out emails to all nurses in charge, as well as therapy managers, schedulers, and the receptionist, just so they are informed and are in the loop. Well, I looked at my booklet, and I saw that there wasn't anything put down. I looked at the patient's schedule and saw that she was in a therapy session anyways, so I told the receptionist that I'll come downstairs to speak with a family member. I get downstairs and I'm greeted by a lady. I said hello to her, and she tells me she wants to see that patient for window visits. I apologized and informed her that she wouldn't be able to see the patient, while further explaining that she has to call to make an appointment ahead of time. Well, as you can probably imagine, this lady got mad and told me, "Are you guys a prison? You guys are treating my in-law like a prisoner." So I told her, no, we are not a prison, but these are protocols to keep people safe. Not every hospital is even offering this to families and friends, and that we are the only hospital that is currently doing this. Plus, this is so we can protect our patients, employees, and visitors. Well, she huffs and keeps calling us a prison, and that this is unfair. I then asked her and I said, "Didn't the patient's son already call this morning to see the patient tomorrow?" She then looks at me and rolls her eyes, stating that she can't do tomorrow, and that this is why she's here today. Well, I apologized again, and I told her that the patient is in therapy anyways, so she will not be able to see the patient. Plus, what if another patient's family is doing window visits right now, or that we are booked for the day? And I already explained the rules to the son too. Well, the lady still called us a prison one more time and said for me to just bring clothes to the patient, and then finally left. I then came to find out that the lady was the wife of the son who called me this morning. And I swear, some people are just so entitled. I know that everybody wants to see their family during this tough time, but that absolutely should not be at the expense of other people. Yeah, that lady was completely out of line. Like, does she want to get COVID? I don't know about you, but that's not something I want to toy with. I mean, unless she wants to join the sick ward herself, then she honestly needs to go at the scheduled time and just deal with it just like everybody else. Like, seriously, the patient had already scheduled a time. They had time tomorrow where they could have a window visit. So for this entitled Karen to run up and be like, no, I want special treatment. I want to see them right now no matter what. That, in my opinion, is super weird and honestly so incredibly unacceptable. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for yelling at my cousin all because she behaved so poorly at my party? Here's what happened. So I'm a 28-year-old male and I yelled at my cousin's sister who's 24 all at a party because she started mocking me during my party. Now, for a bit of context, my cousin was such a kind and sweet woman before she went to university. We are fairly religious and we try to resolve things in a peaceful way. I'm kind of the odd sheep in the family as I have anger issues and I've been controlling it after it nearly shattered my 4-year relationship. After my cousin joined university, she got mixed up with some ideology group and started behaving kind of oddly. And oddly as in she just wouldn't take anything from anyone, and she would also get highly offended by the smallest things. When the elder ones in our family used to joke about her behind her back, we as cousins never criticized her for anything. But lately, she is trying to be the center of attention during every single event, either by putting bizarre makeup on or by engaging in a debate which ends in a huge ruckus, which takes away from the attention. Fast forward to a week before, and I was hosting a small party with close friends and family as I was about to start my own venture. And things were going well until I started my speech, because of course, there she was, countering everything that I was saying. Now, I am pretty nervous when it comes to public appearances and all of that, but I memorized a short speech which my wife had prepared. I held up for as long as I could, but I lost my cool all of a sudden. After hearing her murmuring and saying that I need to be careful because you're saying big words, which you might not be able to handle, I finally bursted out and said some very bad stuff which I now regret. She started raising her voice, and as I understood that I had definitely messed up, I stood there clenching my fist and just started saying sorry over and over again. But even through all of that, she just kept on shouting. My wife even held me and told me to calm down while my cousin was still shouting. I was shaking at this point and I almost went into a rage. My wife called off the party and I received plenty of text messages the next morning. Every single message said, "You knew she's like this. You shouldn't have behaved so recklessly." Now, my wife had not seen me like this in a long time, and now she only speaks to me when needed. But now I feel like a complete jerk, and I now seriously don't know what to do. I do not think that you're the jerk in this scenario, and the fact that anybody who attended that party could even begin to side with your cousin is honestly beyond me. Like, she was completely out of line. She was talking over you in the middle of your speech, essentially trying to pull focus away from you just so she could be the center of attention for some weird reason at your party. Like, it sounds like you had some kind of like new job or some prospect in your life, and this was supposed to be your send-off for this new adventure. But instead, your cousin stepped in and literally ruined the moment. Like, that was honestly so uncalled for, and there was no reason for her to act that way. Like, is it really that hard to sit still and not interrupt someone in the middle of a speech? Like, I don't know about you, but I could do that all day. Now, obviously, to get it out of the way, you probably should have avoided her and just not invited her at all to your party. But then again, that would have been really difficult to do, and I think it's probably safe to say that your extended family would probably turn on you if you didn't invite her, and then she would come to the party with a chip on her shoulder ready to really make a ruckus. So truly, with all things considered, you are definitely not the jerk in this scenario. I know that if I was having a speech like that and someone ruined the moment just to try and argue with me over what I was saying, I would probably lose my cool as well and tell them to get out. An entitled couple treat me like garbage as I'm trying to check them out at Walmart, and after listening to them say awful things to me over and over again, I finally decided that enough was enough, and I stood up for myself for the first time ever at that job. Here's what happened. So being 16 and working at Walmart was never meant to be glamorous, but dealing with entitled parents definitely took the cake. I still remember the day that Karen and Kevin, as I like to call them, decided to make my life a living nightmare. It was a Saturday afternoon and the store was buzzing with activity. I was manning my checkout lane, trying to keep up with the influx of customers and making sure I scanned everything properly. And that's right when I saw them. The Karen, who is a woman with a perfectly styled blonde hairdo and a face permanently contorted in an expression of disdain. And then also in walks the Kevin, her equally entitled husband, sporting a beer belly that strained the buttons of his Hawaiian shirt. They approach my lane with a cart overflowing overflowing with groceries. They unloaded it onto the belt with a sigh of entitlement. Their faces were saying that they were above this. As I scanned each item, Karen kept interrupting me with demands for price checks and special discounts that didn't exist. Meanwhile, Kevin stood there with his arms crossed, occasionally grunting in agreement with his wife's complaints. When it came time to pay, Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a wad of cash. She slammed the bills onto the counter, scattering them everywhere. She said to me, "There, you can count it." I patiently gathered the bills and started counting, making sure to double check each denomination. Now, as I expected, there was a discrepancy. The amount she had given me was several dollars short. I began to say, "Ma'am, it seems you're short a few dollars." This Karen's eyes narrowed and she said to me, "What? Nonsense, I gave you the exact amount." The Kevin then chimed in and his voice was in a low growl as he said, "Yeah, don't you dare cheat us, kid. We know how you teenagers like to scam people." I felt my cheeks burning with anger. Here I was, a 16-year-old working my minimum wage job, trying to do my best, and they are actually accusing me of stealing from them? So I said to them firmly, "No, I counted it twice. You're missing $7.50. This Karen let out a gasp, clutching her pearls in the process. "How dare you accuse us of lying?" The Kevin then stepped forward, his face inches away from mine. He said to me, "We can settle this outside." But I stood my ground. I may have been young, but I was not afraid of them. I said to them, "I am not going to argue with you. Either pay the remaining amount or I will call security." Now, the mention of security seemed to have a sobering effect on them. The Karen huffed and dug around in her purse, eventually pulling out the missing money. She slammed it onto the counter, her face a mask of fury. "Here, just hurry up and finish this so we can get out of this dump." I finished scanning their groceries, my hands trembling slightly, and as they stormed out of the store, Kevin muttered something under his breath about teenagers these days. Now, I sank onto a chair behind the counter, feeling exhausted and drained. Dealing with entitled parents like Karen and Kevin was a constant reminder of the ugliness that existed in the world, but it also made me stronger, more resilient. It taught me to stand up for myself and not be intimidated by bullies, no matter how big or loud they might be. That day at Walmart was a turning point for me. It was the day I realized that I wouldn't let anyone, least of all a couple of entitled parents, walk all over me. It was the day I found my voice and I learned to stand up for what is right. Good for you for standing up for yourself and not taking this garbage that they were trying to throw your way. They were very clearly trying to get you all flustered and try to intimidate you into making some kind of mistake so that they can get off scot-free and possibly have a discount. I mean, why else would they be screaming and crying about getting a discount or some kind of like special offer that doesn't exist? And this is all over $7.50. How can you seriously be that entitled where you are completely blind to the fact that this is not that big of a deal? So truly, with all things considered, I'm so happy you decided to stick up for yourself, because these people were clearly up to no good. Today, I messed up by ruining two sisters' relationship with each other after I secretly dated the both of them without telling the other one exactly what was going on. And now, as a result, their relationship has fallen apart, and I am seriously counting down the days until I can disappear from their life and never have to deal with this mess ever again. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I take full responsibility for this, and I know that I messed up, so honestly, do your worst, because it can't be any worse than how I'm feeling right now. I was, and probably am not anymore, friends with this woman for a couple of years. We met through mutual friends, and we'd both be at parties that they would throw. She's been dating a guy off and on since I've known her, so I always thought of us as just friends. I did feel like it'd be nice to be in a relationship because we seemed to vibe really well, but I never asked her about it. That fling ended for good this past summer, and I started getting text messages from her more often. Not like every day, but definitely a spike in activity. In hindsight, I should have cleared the air with her and asked if we were just friends or something more, but I didn't. I met her sister once about a year and a half ago, and then I saw her again this past Thanksgiving when a group of us went over to her family's place. Her sister and I also clicked, and I will admit, I felt like she was someone I could see myself dating if she was open to it. And I felt this way more than the younger sister. Now, I didn't tell the older sister that straight up, but I did ask if she would like to grab a bite sometime, and she said yes. So we did that a couple times. And you know what? We didn't even do anything together, if you know what I mean. We didn't even kiss. We were always in public spaces, and I thought about broaching the subject, about being a thing on the next 1 or 2 outings, but that definitely did not happen. Today, I got a call from the older sister, and the younger sister somehow found out that we went out and blew up on her sister, accusing her of using me as I paid for both meals, and that we were spending quality time together, which is just not true. Now there's a ton of fallout out between them because I did not make my intentions very clear. I not only lost a valuable friendship, but I also drove a wedge between these two family members. What's worse is the older sister's uncle just passed away, and now she has to deal with all of this on top of prepping for the funeral. And while all of this did just happen, I am certain that I'm out of this friend group entirely. I've been trying to call my friend and try diffusing this, but I have not been able to reach her at all. And I really will try to smooth things over before walking away from these people's lives. Like I said, I feel like the biggest scumbag in the world, and I truly wish that things could have gone down much differently. Yeah, this is definitely a massive mess up. Here we have the original poster who decided to date two people in the same family without telling the other person that they were doing that in the first place. Like, I don't know about you, but that was definitely a really bad idea. Like, what did you think was going to happen in this scenario? Did you think that they would be okay with this and they would somehow be super okay with you dating the both of them at some point? Like, I don't know about you, but if I knew that these two were siblings, I would not try to pursue some kind of dating situation with the other sibling without talking to the one that I was dating first. And sure, I get it. All of this did move very fast, and you very clearly found yourself in the crosshair of some kind of family drama that, trust me, from the sounds of it, it has nothing to do with you. Situations like this have probably happened all over the place between the two of them, and I'm sure that you are not the first guy to find themselves in this scenario. So I think moving forward, you can at least understand what you learned and try to never do that ever again, because I am positive that this is a situation that you absolutely do not want to find yourself in ever again. My entitled neighbor is constantly stealing my packages, and anytime I approach her to try and get it back, she constantly denies ever having it. But justice and karma was on my side, as this time when she stole my package, she was shocked when she opened up the package and let loose a giant tarantula into her house. And as a result, she comes storming up to my house, begging me to get the giant spider out of her living room. And I've never felt better about exposing my thieving neighbor in my life. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female and I'm a hobbyist. So as such, I order additions to my collection that are delivered via post or courier. Now, my entitled neighbor who's 28 years old, she moved into her house roughly 3 months ago with her 9-year-old son. I was close friends with the people who lived there previously and had them listed as trusted neighbors to deliver packages to if I'm not home. Since she moved in, I have changed that with the postal services, but unfortunately there are a few delivery people who have not had the information. Sadly, I have had a few parcels delivered to the entitled neighbor's house, and when I've gone to collect my parcels, she has denied knowledge or has given me an already open package and used the excuse that her son accidentally opened it. So last week, I had a delivery coming with several special additions to add to my collection, and I decided to work from home to make sure that I received the package. I started work at my usual time of 9 o'clock in the morning, and having double checked that my doorbell was set to its loudest setting, I went ahead and I got to work. Now, I have a tendency to get absorbed into my work, so by the time I realized that it was 12:30 p.m. and my package was supposed to have delivered by then, I started to worry. The first thing I did was check my emails to see if I had been notified of a delay. My heart sank when I saw the message saying my package had been delivered to my selected neighbor. So I left my house and went straight to my neighbor's house to knock on her door. When she opened the door, she gave me a look that said she was definitely not happy to see me. I looked at her and said, "Hi, I just got a notification that my package has been delivered here. Can I please have it back?" This entitled neighbor then looks at me and says, "There's nothing here." But I responded again and said, "I was just emailed by the courier service that they delivered it to your address. Can I please have it?" Now, at this point, the entitled neighbor was obviously getting pretty angry. She then said to me, "I just told you there is nothing here for you." Now, before I could even ask her again if I could please just have it, she literally slammed the door right in my face. I was obviously annoyed and decided to knock on her door again, and I waited, but she completely ignored me for at least 10 minutes. Feeling frustrated, I went back home and called the courier service, wanting the delivery person to come back and make sure I got my package. I was on hold for quite a while before I finally got through to somebody, and just as I was telling the service operator what was happening, my doorbell rang several times. Then there was repeatedly loud banging coming from my front door, followed by the bell again. I asked the operator to hold on for just a moment while I checked out who was at my door. I opened the door and my entitled neighbor was standing there. Her face was very red and her son was crying. My entitled neighbor then said something that honestly I kind of expected. She said to me, "There is a huge spider loose in my house because of you." Also, yes, I collect tarantulas. I collect true spiders and a lot of other inverts. Now, at first, first, I was scared that my neighbor had harmed one of my new tarantulas, but I just couldn't keep the sarcasm out of my voice. I said to her, "Oh, so you did get my package after all." My neighbor then starts shouting, "Yes, and now there's a huge spider in my living room. You need to get it out of my house right now." So I closed my door and I talked to the operator who had literally heard everything. Now, since I had already told them what was in the package, they were laughing down the phone. I told them I'd have to go to rescue my spider from the crazy Karen. So I grabbed my catch cup and paintbrush from my spider room and I opened my front door again. The entitled neighbor was still standing there looking furious, and her son was now completely sobbing. I look at them and I say, "Okay, show me where it is." The entitled neighbor then says, "I hate you so much," but I simply couldn't help but smile as my entitled neighbor took me into her house and showed me to her living room where my package was on her floor next to a knife that obviously been used to open it, as well as the container that the tarantula had been shipped in. Thankfully, the tarantula was simply hiding under her sofa, and I was able to get it come out with my handy paintbrush, and I caught it in the catch cup. I put it back into its shipping container, then picked up my package. The entitled Karen then said, "Finally, now get that thing out of my house. It terrified my son, and I'm arachnophobic. Don't you dare get any more of those things." And when she said that, I finally lost it. I said to her, "Excuse me? You're the one that opened a package of mine even after I came to collect it." Now, the entitled neighbor looked at me shocked. She said to me, "Yes, well, my son likes to open packages, and I thought it was another one of those gadgets that you get. He loves to play with them after all." Now, at this point, I just started laughing, as she obviously didn't realize that she just admitted to stealing my previous packages. Now, for some context, I work for a company that sends me product prototypes all the time. So I finally turned the conversation on her, and I said to her, "So you have been stealing from me. I swear if you ever open one of my packages again, I'm getting the police involved, and I'm having you charged with theft." Before she could say anything else, I pushed past her and I went back to my house. Thankfully, the tarantula was unharmed and was happily settled into her new enclosure. Since then, I've contacted every courier service in my area and demanded that they never leave anything at her address ever again. Now, there has been one incident where a package from work was delivered to her, but as soon as I knocked on her door, she just handed me the unopened box and closed the door right in my face, much to her son's disappointment if his yelling was anything to go by. So the moral of this story is don't open someone else's package, because you might just get a giant spider in your living room as a result. Yeah, that would be pretty good motivation for me to never touch my neighbor's package. If I knew they had some kind of like spider or tarantula in there, I honestly would never come anywhere near their package again. I am super afraid of spiders. They just freak me out. So if I took my neighbor's package, opened it, and found that sitting in a case, I'm pretty sure I would freak out and run out of my house. Like, there's no way I'm gonna face that. So honestly, good for you for getting your package back. And also, good for you for exposing the truth, because this neighbor was very clearly stealing from you. And that kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My family refuses to allow my boyfriend to come over for Christmas and refuses to give me any kind of good reason why. And right now, I feel like my relationship is on the line and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Ever since I brought my boyfriend over to meet my family, my siblings have been super awful to him and have campaigned with my mom to exclude him from family events. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He hasn't been over for Easter and Thanksgiving, and I stayed home this year for Thanksgiving because my mom said that he was not invited. Last year, he wasn't invited for Christmas either, and when I went alone, he was very hurt by that, and it caused some division between us for a short while afterwards. My father, however, was very disappointed that my mom and siblings could not accept the fact that our family was growing and that it would inevitably grow. I can't explain why my siblings don't like my boyfriend. He is such a friendly person who has never said or done anything wrong to them. My brother has never been in a relationship or lived away from home, so I feel that he has some kind of weird attachment to my family and its traditions. This past Thanksgiving, my mom said that even though my boyfriend wasn't invited, despite the fact that my sister's boyfriend was, she promised that Christmas would be different and I would be able to have him over. So I went ahead and I invited him. Well, yesterday over a phone call, I was checking in to make sure he was coming home with me, and she admittedly told me no. I then reminded her that she promised that he could come over for Christmas, and on the verge verge of tears, she kept saying no, and that it would make my brother and sister very upset. I told her that I wouldn't be coming home, and she proceeded to yell at me over how I'd be ruining Christmas for everyone if I didn't show up. And now I'm in such a difficult position. If I go to my family for Christmas without my boyfriend, it would likely ruin our relationship because he was so hurt last year and he wouldn't feel included by my family. I would also have to uninvite him, which is extremely rude and frankly unloving. But if I stay with him for Christmas, it would conversely ruin my relationship with my family. As far as I know, an invitation was extended to my sister's boyfriend, but not mine. I don't understand why my mom and siblings can't accept my boyfriend as part of the family. I don't know how to negotiate with my mom to allow my boyfriend to come home with me. I spoke to my dad as well last night, and he said it's up to me to change her mind. And I don't know how to do that because she is such an obstinate lady, with my brother and sister unwaveringly immature about it. What should I do? Okay, this story blows my mind for several reasons. For starters, why is your sister's boyfriend allowed to show up, but somehow your boyfriend is not? Like, that is seriously such a case of double standards, it's not even funny. So it leads me to believe that somehow they just don't like you being in some kind of relationship or something like that. I mean, for context, you're 34 years old, so I'm willing to bet that this relationship is kind of a make or break moment for you. And personally, if I was in your shoes and I wanted this relationship to work out, I would personally make the decision to stay with your boyfriend. Because here's the thing, your boyfriend very easily could become your husband. Like, you could possibly marry this guy in the next few years, you never know. And in my opinion, setting up this kind of precedent where you're like, okay, well, you were invited, but now you're not. And by the way, I'm gonna spend time with my family for Christmas. Doing anything like that again for Christmas this year would be so insulting. And I mean, your mom even promised that he could come over. She literally told you, yeah, he can come over this year, only to then be like, sorry, can't do it. Your siblings are gonna be upset if he comes over to the house. Like, last I checked, this is your house, correct? Like, you get to decide who comes over and who doesn't, right? Why are these siblings, who are similar in age to the original poster, by the way, deciding that the original poster's boyfriend can't come over, but her sister's boyfriend can come over? Like, what's the difference here? Because in my opinion, there is no difference. Like, it really seems like the siblings off the bat were like, yeah, we don't like your boyfriend. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't even seem like they've given him a chance in any kind of way. Like, that's the part that bothers me probably the most, because he hasn't even done anything for them to justify this kind of behavior. It literally doesn't make sense, and this seems like a very intentional attack against you and your happiness. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, if they really want to deny your boyfriend from showing up on Christmas Day, then there is no way I'm gonna show up either. I would tell your mom straight up that the both of you are a package deal, and if your boyfriend can't be allowed to show up, then you're not gonna go either. Because the behavior of everybody involved in this situation is quite literally extremely immature, and it doesn't sound like they have a good reason in the slightest as to why they don't want your boyfriend coming over for Christmas. I lost my engagement ring in my friend's house, and she is now unwilling to let me look around her house just so I can find it. And now I'm so distraught, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my friend in 2019 at a job that neither of us work at anymore. For the sake of this story, I'll call my friend Amy. Amy is not her real name. Now, Amy and I were instant friends. We did everything together. After we both left that job, our friendship definitely became much more distanced. We were still friends, we were just not hanging out every day. Every now and again, Amy would call me up to recruit me to help her with a party or some chore that she had to do. And you know what? I always jump to do it because I like her. I love helping my friends and being that person they can rely on when they need something done. This past October, I married my husband, and he would always mention that it seemed like Amy takes advantage of me, and he knows if I were to ever ask her to help out, I wouldn't get the same effort back. And he's probably right. Although Amy is kind, she is very scatterbrained and chaotic, and at times socially unaware. I know she has some issues, so I gave her a lot of slack. However, it got to the point where even my best friends would point this out. I did ask Amy for help with my bachelorette party with her helping decorate, as she owns a lot of party supplies and decor. However, she ended up showing up 2 hours late, and my two best friends ended up having to help me pull it all together. She was apologetic though, and even showed up with a lovely, thoughtful gift. This past week though, my perception of her has changed drastically. She said that she needed help painting her basement and bedroom. So I took off work and I came over to help out, as she had waited until the day before she would have new carpet carpet put down. I spent nearly 12 hours helping her clean, move things around, and paint the walls. I didn't mind though, because I wanted to help, and it made me happy that she could rely on me. Now, I'm very careful with my rings, and I always zip them up in a pocket of my purse. And this time was no different. As we were working with paint, I decided to take them off and zip them up in my purse. I did not touch or open my purse again until the next day. So I woke up and I got my purse, and I went to put my rings back in their box where they stay when I'm not wearing them. And that's when I noticed that my engagement ring was not zipped up in the pocket with my wedding band. I emptied my purse and even cut the lining of it to see if it somehow magically slipped in it, but nothing. I couldn't find anything. I thought to myself, okay, maybe I did open it and I unzipped it and it fell out somehow. So I then searched my entire car, even taking out all the seats just to look for it. I called her a couple of times and got no response from her at all. I left her a message, figuring that she was sleeping as she was up late painting or something like that, and a few hours later she texted back saying that she had just woken up. She said the carpet layers were there and that she could not go in and check to find my ring. She did retrace the steps I took to my car but found nothing. I called her crying and begging her to look around and ask the workers. She did show them a picture and let them know to keep an eye out. However, I do not know the workers and therefore cannot trust their integrity. There was also another girl who was helping us, and I know her but not that well. But she has in the past admitted to some petty theft, and while it wasn't anything big, it basically made me realize that I can't trust her integrity either. Shortly after our call, I saw on her Snap story her and this other friend messing around most of the day. She said she looked all the places that she could and maybe it was in her desk. I then asked if I could come and look, and she said she was too tired and I could come look another time. She said her house was in chaos and it would need to be unpacked to be properly searched. I was very disheartened and I let her know I was very anxious to find it. I reached out several times over the course of 4 days and got very little response, and she showed a massive lack of concern. Meanwhile, this entire time, she's posting Snap stories of just hanging out with friends. Now, obviously, I don't expect to spend 24/7 looking for it. However, if it were me and she lost something, I would be very willing for her to come over and help search my house from top to bottom until we found it. After several days of little response or willingness to let me come look, I sent her a text telling her that she obviously did not care that I lost a prized possession. And she responded a day later saying that she does care, but again, she has little willingness to give me an actual update or to invite me over to her place, even though on her Snap she had several friends over helping her unpack. I do trust that she did not steal it. However, I don't trust her friend or the workers. I feel if it did somehow fall out, it was probably found and pocketed. I know for a fact I had it zipped in the pocket of my purse, and I did not even open it as my phone and keys were in my jacket pocket. It's been nearly a week and I still have very little news or any kind of update. She has said that she has been keeping an eye out, and I just feel after spending 12 hours cleaning and painting for her and all the other times that I've helped her out, I have not gotten a single shred of that effort in return. I debated giving her a piece of my mind, but I was holding out hope that she would somehow find it. Just knowing her though, she has likely not put in any effort to look, and her house is probably still in absolute chaos. And at this point, I've given up hope that she will even find it. Now, my husband was kind and understanding, and as a Christmas gift, he has ordered me an exact copy, and I'm very grateful for that. I just feel like this was her chance to show up for me, and I'm very disappointed, and my heart aches for this moment. I love her to pieces. She's hilarious, she's sweet, and she's really fun to be around. However, she is disorganized and a bit self-centered at times. I've been urged by my husband and friends several times to minimize all contact with her even before this incident. I know at the end of the day it is my fault, as I should have double-checked my purse before leaving. I just have built the habit of zipping them up in the pocket. I feel like a total fool, and I've been kicking myself for losing it. I wish she would just allow me to come over and look. It's honestly been so frustrating. Do I hold out hope until she finds it? I am ready to cut ties, but I feel if she just found it, I feel much would be forgiven, but I just know that she won't. I mean, should I cut my losses and accept that she will never find it? And if so, should I just cut her off now instead of holding on to a silver lining of hope that my friend will show up for me for once? I really love her and I value her, and I would hate to lose her friendship over something like this? I mean, how should I approach my friendship or the loss of said friendship? What should I do? How on earth can you possibly view this person as your friend? This Amy lady has been using you since day one. Like, your husband and your friends are right. She does not care about you in the slightest, and she's been using you for free labor literally since the beginning. And here's the thing, maybe you just don't see it from your side of things, because you do like to help people out and be reliable for people around you. And in my opinion, I think that's a fantastic trait to have in your life. There's nothing wrong with being charitable and willing to help those around you, because I think the world would be a better place if more people were like you specifically. But here's the thing, it really seems like Amy keeps you around, or even contacts you in the first place, is because she views you as free labor. She doesn't see you as a friend. She sees you as someone who will do whatever she says, while doing it with a smile on your face for free. Like, you really should have listened to everybody else around you, because this situation that you're in right now, this was inevitable when it comes to Amy, because she will never show up for you. She uses people. She doesn't help people. She, of course, called you up so that you could come over and help her paint and move stuff and all this other garbage. And when you came to her saying, hey, I need your help for once in your life, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's suddenly so busy. She is suddenly so busy that she can't even have you come over to her house just so you yourself can find your engagement ring, because her life is so chaotic right now. She's unpacking stuff and it's just utter chaos over here. Which, by the way, is just another lie, because she's literally going on Snapchat and posting all these stories, basically proving that she's not only not looking for your ring, or she knows where it's at and she probably already sold it. Because maybe you don't want to hear it, but the real reason that she does not want you coming over to her house is because she probably has your ring and she most likely is trying to find some way to sell it. Like, that, in my opinion, based on everything you've described, that is exactly what I think is happening. It's either that or you really did drop it and one of her friends found it and they're the one that's selling it. Because you have it right. If Amy for some reason decided to come over and help you paint your house, and then she called you up and said, oh my gosh, my ring is missing, you would let her over in a heartbeat and you would start the biggest search party on planet Earth. Like, I'm convinced that you would do everything it would take to make sure she got her ring back. And that in and of itself doesn't prove that you're a good person and that you like to help people out. If anything, it would prove to me that you didn't steal the ring. So the fact that she's not willing to put the effort in to find your ring, or just to let you come over and take a look just so you can have some kind of peace of mind, that, in my opinion, is a clear sign that Amy's playing you, and she most likely played a role in your ring going missing. So in my opinion, I think it's time to cut Amy out of your life, because she 100% does not care about you. And I think you would be a complete fool if you tried to keep this friendship going. An entitled Karen sprays everybody down in the pharmacy line with disinfectant, as she claims that she's just trying to avoid any germs in preparation for her surgery. But once she gets confronted for spraying people in the face with disinfectant, this entitled Karen goes crazy and starts making a fuss in such a way that I've never seen before in my life. Here's what happened. So I'm a shift supervisor for a retail pharmacy store chain, and I'm also the manager on duty. And I was dropped right into the middle of this story. So with our pharmacy, and given that it's the end of November, flu season is in full swing, and we have our fair share of customers coughing and sneezing. It's rush hour, and we have a fairly long line in the pharmacy. Well, suddenly, a woman who's the Karen of this story gets out of line, grabs a can of Lysol disinfectant spray off the shelf, and douses each customer in the spray. This Karen then makes her way to the front of the line, where she was originally supposed to go next, just to pick up her prescription. Well, a customer, who we'll call John, that's not his real name, confronts this Karen first, telling her to knock it off, then confronts the Karen and tells her to get in the back of the line. Well, this entitled Karen screams at John to pick on someone his own size and leave a tiny woman like her who's about to have heart surgery alone. Karen is about 5 feet tall and maybe 100 pounds, and John is 6'3" and at least 250 pounds. Now, this is when the pharmacy calls me over to handle the situation. The first thing I notice when I get there is a smell that I can't identify. This Karen then yells at John to go fight her husband in the parking lot, stating that he'll beat John into a pulp. Then an old man about 5'5" shows up, telling this Karen to just get her prescription so they can get out of there. And at this point, I'm assuming that's her husband. So I take this opportunity to ask John what's going on. John, along with several other customers, tell me exactly what happened. I mean, there's a smell of Lysol disinfectant spray everywhere now. John apologizes to me, stating he just wanted wanted Karen to knock it off and that he didn't mean to escalate the situation. I quietly tell the customers that I think she's crazy, but her husband seems to have her under control, so let's just get them out of here as soon as possible. Then the entitled Karen slams the can of Lysol on the counter, saying that she's not paying for it. So at this point, I confront the Karen, saying that she took it off the shelf and she damaged it, so now she has to pay for the damage. This Karen then screams that she's about to have heart surgery and she can't have any kind of germs. So I tell her that gives her no right to assault customers and damage the product. Now, at first, as you can probably guess, she demands my manager. But when I tell her I'm the manager on duty, she demands my name and business card to try and get me fired. The Karen's husband calms her down and says he'll call corporate in the morning to ask what the policy is. Karen gets her prescription and the Lysol and walks out with her husband, cursing and screaming the entire time. And this was more like her husband was trying to get her out as quickly as possible. I talk to the customers, and a few of them crack a joke that they are all sanitized, with one of them bringing up that it sounds like this Karen might have dementia or Alzheimer's. A few minutes later, I'm in the vitamin aisle, and as I'm stocking shelves, this Karen's husband actually walks up to me and asks me where certain vitamins are at, and he's talking to me like the previous events never happened. Now, it's been 2 days since all of this went down, and it's pretty clear to me that he never called corporate. Wow, I cannot believe that the Karen's husband actually went back into the store. Like, I don't know about you, but if my spouse was acting like that inside of a pharmacy, I would not want to show my face there ever again. I'd be freaking out. I'd be like, okay, let's not go back in. Like, I don't care what kind of vitamins you need, I don't want to go in there because you've embarrassed me. Like, first of all, that Karen actually started spraying people down with disinfectant. Does she not know how dangerous that could be for certain people? Like, some people might have like a really serious allergy to that, or they might have asthma and that could trigger like an attack of some kind. Like, that seriously could have been very bad. So the fact that this weird, crazy lady was spraying that all over the place is really insane. But with all that in mind, I really feel bad for the husband in this story. He's got to live with this lady, let alone put up with her garbage. I mean, I seriously can't imagine putting up with that on a daily basis, because that lady sounds unhinged. And here's the thing, if she really was having heart surgery, then she really should have had her husband go in there and get the medication for her. If she was really that worried about any kind of germs, she should have stayed in the car. It also blows my mind that the rest of the people didn't file like an assault charge with the police against this lady. Like, if I was in that line and some idiot was spraying Lysol in my face, I would be the first one calling the police. That is definitely not going to happen on my watch. So hopefully, for the sake of your store and everybody who works there, that entitled Karen never comes back, because the way she was acting was so uncalled for, and no one in that store deserved to be treated that way in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother called me a mistake as a child and made my childhood an absolute nightmare. But after years of dealing with this and trying to make my own life out of the mess she made, I finally can say that I'm better off without her, and I truly feel like I'm a stronger person after all that I've been through. Here's what happened. So I need to start off by saying that I was an accident. The doctor told my mother she'll never have kids, and then I suddenly came along. My dad was young, and she was about 6 years older than him. After I was born, she actually had something to do with me. That was until she met her now current husband. She tried to tell me that he was my biological dad and kept pressuring me at 2 years old that he was in fact my father. And this is right when, at the same time, my biological dad had visitations every other weekend, but she claimed that he was just a friend. Well, he eventually told me exactly what's going on, and my mother was livid. 2 years later, she had another kid who's my half-brother, and that's when her manipulation really kicked off. At 4 years old, I was changing diapers and getting my brother dressed, even waking up in the middle of the night when he cried to make him bottles. I was potty training, doing formula, diaper changing, etc. It was all literally up to me. She told me that this was normal and that older brothers are supposed to set an example. Meanwhile, I was off and on seeing my dad every other weekend. She hated it and would tell me that he wasn't coming to pick me up, or that he simply didn't care, when in reality, he would call to ask to have me on his weekend, and she would flat out say no, even going as far as to take me to the meetup spot that was more of a drive for my dad than it was for her, just to prove to me that he wasn't coming. This continued for several years. I'd take care of my brother, started doing small chores that led to full-on cleaning the house, and then she got pregnant again and the cycle restarted. Now, my second brother wasn't so bad, not as bad as my first first one. But I hate to say it, I started to loathe the both of them. Because while they had brand new shoes and clothing, I got hand-me-downs and wore shoes that the soles were falling apart. I literally had to duct tape them together just so that I could walk in them. Fast forward to when I was about 14 years old, and it was right about then that I had finally had enough. At this time, I had swapped custody between my biological mother and my dad because of issues that my mother was causing, such as moving out of state, which at the time was against court order, and my dad had made a mistake, which had been resolved by this point. I mean, nobody's perfect. At the time, I was in homeschool, failing literally every class, because my public school had sent me to the hospital because although she was a stay-at-home mother, she was unreachable, and it was assumed that I had gone to school with appendicitis. I attempted to tell her before I went to school that I didn't feel good, but she said I was faking it, resulting in me staying in the hospital for 8 hours by myself until I convinced the nurse and the doctor to contact my school counselor so I could go home. At this point, my eyes had finally opened to the situation, and I finally told my dad I wanted to come home and start fighting with my biological mother because I simply had had enough. She would then call my dad and ask him if he wanted me, as if I was just property to her. Needless to say, he did say yes, and after a long, awkward 2 weeks, I was shipped on a plane headed towards east. My dad had actually moved states as well. Well, long story short, I finally came to where I call home. I got my grades up and I graduated. My dad remarried to this awesome woman who, although is my stepmother, I just call her mom. And when it comes to my biological mother, well, nobody's heard anything more than a happy birthday, and eventually I got nothing at all. And I can finally say after 10 years, I'm doing a lot better. And no, it wasn't one of those situations where they all ride into the sunset happily ever after, because those stories don't exist. We had our ups and downs just like any normal person, but overall it was way better than all the garbage I was in. I realized recently that I may have residual problems when an innocent event made me flinch and take me back to when I was a kid that was all due to my mother. So I decided to start therapy, and after talking to a friend, they said that maybe I should post it online. But I did want to end this story with a message I have learned from all of this. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, and no matter what you go through, you will always find a way to grow and strengthen yourself, even when you feel weak. Because after all, even black sheep's wool is found useful in some other aspects. Wow, what an awful situation that you grew up in. First of all, I want to say full-heartedly that you are not a mistake. You didn't do anything wrong, and honestly, the way your mom treated you is so inappropriate. She made your life a living nightmare, and she literally, at the age of 4 years old, had you changing diapers for your brother because she was too lazy to take care of them herself. That is so unfair to you, and I'm so sorry you had to put up with that. But thankfully, your dad was able to get you out of that environment, and you were able to fight tooth and nail to stay away from that woman. And hopefully you never have to deal with her ever again. Am I the jerk for asking my fiance to skip this year's Christmas family vacation, all because our baby is due? Here's what happened. So for a bit of context, I have gone to Florida with his family for the past 5 years for at least part of Christmas. And every other year, I return before him to spend Christmas Day with my family. This year is the first time in a long time that all the other siblings are able to overlap dates. My fiance has major fear of missing out, which is why this is a sensitive subject. His parents have always been weird about keeping their family close. They've never said it outright, but little things suggest they don't consider me completely part of their family yet, since we still aren't married. Also, my parents are away overseas dealing with a grandparent emergency. My mom has been kept in the loop though, and is trying to come back as soon as she can. Now, my fiance and I are expecting our first baby due December 30th. His family has a vacation home in Florida, and they have gone every single year during the holidays for about a month until New Year's. He agreed not to go this year because of the baby, but his family is insisting that he should go, and that he can come back on the 28th, which according to them is ample time before the baby is due. So he bought a ticket for December 15th through the 28th. His reasoning is that his parents really want him there, and his siblings will also be going. Well, this is bothering me a lot, more than I thought, because I know pregnancies are unpredictable, especially when it's in the last trimester, and if anything happens leading up to the due date, I need him there. My parents are away until December 26th, and my friends have their family, so I will be completely alone. Now, the other reason, and I guess it is more selfish, is that I will be spending Christmas by myself. It's not the main reason why I'm bothered, but it's a small part of it. He's been spending Christmas every year in Florida Florida since he was 15 years old, and there will be many more trips after the baby is born, so I just don't know why he has to go this year. Anytime I bring it up, it results in a very uncomfortable fight about my expectations to put me first rather than his parents, so I don't even bring it up anymore. His parents have always been kind to me, but they also don't see any problems, so I think I'm going crazy here. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your husband and his family are being incredibly selfish. I can't believe that your husband is going to let you spend Christmas by yourself, but would also be willing to gamble you giving birth by yourself. Like, seriously, that's insane to me, and that's not okay. Like, he's a complete fool if he decides to go ahead and go to Florida. And the original poster has it right. You have no idea if that baby is going to be early, on time, or late. And the fact that he can't understand that, and that the other people in his family aren't willing to admit that, is really disturbing to me. I mean, never mind the fact that you're going to spend Christmas by yourself, but there's also a chance you could give birth by yourself as well. I don't know about you, but if I was in your shoes, I would be super upset. Like, that's uncalled for, and he seriously needs to be there for your first baby. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your husband and his family are incredibly selfish, and the fact that they would just push you aside as if your situation isn't nearly as important as their stupid trip, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. My girlfriend said that I'm being unreasonable for not agreeing to let her use the living room when she's working, and I'm honestly so frustrated over this situation, I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my girlfriend, and we both now work from home. We live in a 3-bedroom apartment, so we turn the 2 spare bedrooms into offices for both of us to work in. Well, my girlfriend started using the living room instead, since she prefers sitting on the sofa. This initially wasn't a problem for me, but then one day, my girlfriend actually asked me if I could not come into the living room during my lunch break, since she had a meeting. Now, she said it was a one-off meeting, so I said that's fine, as long as it's not a regular occurrence. Next week, she asked the same thing and says a regular meeting has been set up for Wednesdays around lunchtime. I just tell her that I'm not really willing to be kicked out of the living and dining room area once a week, since that means me either sitting in my office throughout lunch, which I don't like to do since it's nice to get out of there for an hour or two, or just standing in the kitchen and eating my food. I told her for the meeting she'll need to start using her office if she doesn't want me in the room, since I'm not being banned from my living room. She said I was being unfair since it was only once a week, but I disagreed and said I was being completely reasonable. The living room is a shared space. Her office is specifically for her to work in. I have a week off of work coming up next week, and my girlfriend asked me about what I had planned, and I said I would be seeing friends and families for a day or two, and that I was planning to spend a couple days just relaxing at home. She then mentioned that she would be working in the living room, so I wouldn't really be able to use it, but I just told her that she can't ban me from the living room during all work hours just because she doesn't want to use her office. I then said that she is more than welcome to use the living room, but she will have to accept the TV being on, and that if she wants it to be silent and quiet, she'll have to go into her office. She said that I was being unfair since I know she likes to work in the living room, but I just said that doesn't matter, since her choosing to work there shouldn't mean I'm banned from a shared space. Honestly, I'm so frustrated over this, I now seriously don't know what to do. You are not being unreasonable in the slightest. Like, I personally think you're handling this exactly how I would. Your girlfriend's being really weird here. She's acting like this space is hers to use to work in, but in reality, she has an office space specifically for that. So for her to like stake a claim over the living room and be like, no, I work in this space, like, that's really weird to me, and that just doesn't make any sense. If she really likes to work on the sofa, then I'm sure you guys could like buy a sofa and put it in her office, or something like that where she could be comfortable. But for her to take over this space and be like, no, you can't be in here because I'm working, especially with an already established office that you could be working in, that in my opinion is insane, and there's no good excuse for that. So personally, I don't think you're doing anything wrong, and if anything, I think your girlfriend is being completely unreasonable, because the original poster is right. She can't just suddenly say, oh, I'm taking over this shared space, because that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for boycotting my sister's wedding after she made false accusations against my wife, basically claiming that she is a fraud? Here's what happened. So I'm a 35-year-old male, and I come from an intellectually pretentious family. I'm married into a very blue-collar family, and throughout my adult life, my older sister has always disapproved of my partners. I met my wife when she was in college and I was in the Navy. My sister immediately disliked the bubbly and unfiltered college girl and determined my future wife was untrustworthy and dragging me down. Now, 4 years ago, my wife suffered a traumatic brain injury. It occurred right around the time we conceived our second child, so we chalked off the dizziness, headaches, and other symptoms to her pregnancy. Nearly a year postpartum, the symptoms had not improved, and she started scheduling medical appointments to get checked out. Now, at this point, she was in the Navy. I was separated and in grad school. Over the next 18 or so months, my wife endured an endless slog of appointments, tests, exams, as well as what would be an endless amount of tests and consultations, until it was finally determined that my wife has a very rare neurological condition that, to be honest, I don't fully understand. She was medically retired and classified as a disabled vet. During this whole process, my sister's way of being supportive was to tell me it's probably nothing and not to worry about it. Well, this past weekend, I was chatting with my sister. My wife had gotten a holiday job helping deliver packages, but called out on Black Friday to stay at her parents' longer. My sister made a comment about my wife, saying that she's suddenly sick when she doesn't feel like working, and claimed that my wife had done the same thing to get medically retired from the Navy. Now, as is the habit in my family, I replied with equally snarky jabs, reminding my sister, who is a nephrologist, that my wife injured her head, not her kidneys, and she doesn't know what she's talking about. My sister claimed that it took too long because my wife was doctor shopping for the diagnosis she wanted. I then said that if I got paid what she did to sit in an office and say, keep doing dialysis, I wouldn't have personal days either. Now, I had confronted my sister and my mother in the past about their accusations that my wife was milking the system and that she just needed to suck it up. Well, after some very heated exchanges, they had gotten better about keeping their thoughts to themselves, but this one pulled no punches. My sister is getting married in September, and I told her that unless she apologizes and admits she doesn't know anything about my wife's medical history, then we won't be in attendance. So honestly, is boycotting my only sibling's wedding an overreaction? Am I the jerk for choosing the wedding as the event not to attend when it is such an important day to her? What should I do? I don't know. I can see both sides of this. First and foremost, the way your sister and mom are treating your wife is so uncalled for. Like, seriously, why would you make that kind of assumption about anybody? That is seriously so messed up. Because you know what? If your sister was in your wife's shoes, I'm sure she would be very upset about somebody making false accusations about her. I mean, just think about what she's saying. She's saying that the original poster's wife only did this to try and get out of working, and that she only found the right doctor to get a good diagnosis so that she could retire from the Navy. Like, that is such an awful thing to say to somebody, and there's no good excuse for that. Now, on the other hand, it does seem like you're only saying I'm not coming to your wedding because it is her wedding. Now, don't get me wrong, I would probably do the same thing, especially if this is like such a consistent issue in your life. Like, it sounds like she makes these kind of snide remarks about everything all the time, and that's incredibly inappropriate. There's nothing okay about that. So with that in mind, I don't think you would be completely the jerk. I think there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of hurt feelings. And overall, regardless of what happens, I really think your sister absolutely should apologize. An entitled customer tries to get me in trouble with my managers, claiming that I'm the reason why his food tastes terrible, while also claiming that I was completely incompetent in my service. But despite the fact that I literally did everything I could to make this guy happy, it still in his eyes literally was not enough. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this two-top of a guy and a girl came in tonight, and this was on a pretty slow Sunday evening. All goes well, and the girl jokes around with me, while her date is generally easygoing. Well, the first problem is when the girl's food comes out. The guy says her fries are cold. I tell them, oh, I'm so sorry, that's no good. Let me have them replate your salmon and veggies so that you can still eat while we cook up a fresh batch of fries. Now, this was my first mistake, not realizing he wanted fresh fries on top of the cold ones so that they had 2 orders of fries. I run back to the kitchen and I ask our expo to have them make new fries while we replayed the dish. Thankfully, they had fries coming up then, so they fixed everything up and ran it back out, literally 2 minutes tops. I have her check to ensure that they're fresh, and they are. I say thank you and then I go on my way. But then the guy says his rice and quinoa is cold. I say to him, oh, I don't know what's happening with cold food. That's not okay either. Let me make a new batch of that, and I'll also relay the message to the manager and the chefs about the food coming out cold. The guy then suddenly decides to be combative for no reason. He says to me, you know, I'm not coming up with this stuff out of my head, which is like, I didn't understand what that even meant, so I said, no, I understand. I also said that I'm sorry and that I'm gonna get him new rice. I leave his plate plate for him, and I just go get an extra side of rice and quinoa so he doesn't have to stop eating. I bring it out and it absolutely is fresh. He then says, "This is ridiculous at this point, and I don't even want you to do anything about it because we keep going back and forth on the food. My salmon is dry while hers is moist." He is now visibly annoyed, and I was so lost on what else to do other than get him a manager. Which, by the way, I had already told one of the 2 managers on shift to check on him, and that is right after he said that the rice was cold. I said to him, "I'm so sorry," but he says, "No, I just want you to see what I'm seeing. It's dry, right?" His tone has been gradually shifting into anger from the first incident with the fries, and I can tell he's not going to be happy with anything I do. I say, "Unfortunately, sir, I don't know as I didn't make the food, so let me tell the chef and my manager again." He says to me, "I didn't say you made the food. You don't have to agree with me." Ugh, never mind, but it's dry and you should be able to see that as a consumer. Now, it honestly looked like a regular salmon to me. I eat our salmon all the time and it's amazing. So I don't really know, but obviously I take his word for it and I tell my manager once again, well, he's not going over to the table, which is really odd. So I think to myself, okay, I'm just gonna tell the second manager and ask him to check on the table, but instead, this guy just walks by. He doesn't speak to the table, but instead just looks at the table to see if he's eating and then tells me to comp his meal. I asked what the guy told him and he says nothing. They didn't talk. And right about now, I'm thinking, come on, neither manager wants to speak to this table at all. The 4th time I go up to this table after they've gotten their meals is right when it really just goes off the rails. I ask how everything is and the guy immediately starts berating me, saying stuff like, "How do you think it's going? I already told you what's happening." Meanwhile, he's still eating his food. He's very combative at this point, and my other tables are turning to glance. So I say to him, "Okay, I'm sorry, I was just checking." And then he says, "Oh, you're checking now that we're almost done? What's that going to do? You've done nothing and no one in this restaurant has come to help make this right." I say to him, "Honestly, sir, I did tell my managers and I asked them to come speak with you. I'm sorry that they haven't and I will go get them again." Now, at this point, he's right. It's ridiculous I've had to ask them 3 times. But he doesn't know that I've asked them 3 times just to try and get a manager to step in and check on him. In his mind, I've done nothing but bring 2 fresh items they said were cold and haven't done anything about the dry salmon that he said he didn't want fixed. Once he heard I had asked for a manager and one hadn't come along, he gets very insistent about needing the corporate phone number and starts getting louder, demanding the names and positions of the managers. He wanted to know if they were general managers or just shift managers, as well as literally their full names. Well, I gave their names that he's demanding, and I say, "Okay, hold on," and I leave to get a manager again because clearly I can't de-escalate this situation on my own. I tell my managers that he's demanding the corporate number and has asked for their names, and only then does one of them finally intervene. He proceeds to talk to this table for 25 minutes. I'm not even kidding. The table next to them is visibly uncomfortable and kept turning around to look at the guy who's complaining for so long, and then finally makes eye contact with me. They then ask for the check and then pull me aside to tell me not to worry about miserable people like that. Finally, my manager comes back after speaking with them, and the man and the woman start to leave. They had their food all boxed up to go despite it being terrible in their eyes, and obviously had their entire meals comped. But then the guy starts pulling cash out and waits at the very front to make sure he tips the kitchen staff and the manager. He then leaves smiling and waving. Now, I see all of this, and I ask my manager if he tipped him and the chefs, to which he says yes. I asked what his issue was with me then, and what did you guys talk about for so long? He says to me, "You took the girl's plate to get new fries instead of leaving it and get extra ones. And he said you were in no rush to help and had no urgency." The expo overheard and jumps in to back me up on getting the fresh fries and rice as soon as possible. Now at this point, I had it. I'm incredibly stressed out as it is, and this table made me feel awful. And now it seemed like my manager, who spoke to the guy, was agreeing that I should have done things differently. So I told both managers, honestly, I did ask both of you guys to check on him several times, and both of you guys waited until he berated me about corporate and wanted your names. You waited until my tables were visibly uncomfortable. I'm actually very upset and I need to go calm down. One manager was silent, while the other one argues with me that I never asked him to talk to the table. I reiterated that I did more than once, and then went to the back to calm down. I finished my shift and I left, but I'm already working on my master's project at 2 in the morning, and I have to teach tomorrow in a few hours because it's so expensive expensive out here having 2 jobs, not to mention being in school. And I'm honestly so sick of these people pushing me over the edge. Yeah, your managers are clearly trying to save face. For them to act like, oh yeah, you didn't ask us to do anything. That seriously is so toxic, it's not even funny. I used to have managers like that at previous jobs, and let me tell you something, nothing is more infuriating than watching people straight up lie to your face and try to gaslight you. You went up to them 3 separate times. You said to them, hey, I need you to be a manager and do something about it. Not just walk by the table and be like, oh, their meals are gonna be free. And it's so ironic that the only time they stepped in to do anything about the situation is right when you said, oh yeah, they're gonna call corporate by the way, have fun. Like that's the mark of someone who should not be a manager in my opinion. And that honestly sucks for someone like you who's just trying to work and get through school as well as their other jobs. Also, when it comes to this entitled customer, I seriously bet they acted like that on purpose just so they could get a free meal out of your service. And by the way, you were serving them. You went above and beyond what you needed to do just to make sure that they had their stuff exactly as they wanted. And what you experienced is something that a lot of people in customer service also experience. The customer will treat you like garbage even though you've done everything you possibly can, and then once they have a manager that they can scream at, they suddenly turn the tables and act like you're the reason that none of this is right. And that's so unfair for you because you did everything right. You did exactly what you needed to do to make sure these people were happy. But even then, it still wasn't enough. So honestly, your managers are straight up jerks for not keeping an eye on you and trying to be better stewards of their employees. Because in my eyes, you did everything right. And for that one manager and this guy to act like you're just incompetent and you didn't do anything correct, in my opinion, is very insulting and completely uncalled for.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My entitled mother refuses to allow my boyfriend to come over for Christmas Day, claiming that he would have to pay $200 a night just to stay with us. And now, as a result, I've decided that I'm not coming over for Christmas, and I honestly could not be more relieved. Here's what happened. So for context, I've been dating this guy for a few months now. I'm a 21-year-old female and he is 24 years old. He doesn't have anyone to celebrate Christmas with and has never celebrated it before, so I thought it'd be fun if he spent it with my family, especially since I have to go back for the holidays. My mom runs an Airbnb thing in our house to make extra money, but in the winter, not many people are looking for a vacation, so there usually aren't any bookings. And because I'm her daughter, she lets me stay here for free. When I brought this up with her, she said that he would have to pay $200 a night to stay with us for Christmas, since he would be taking an extra room. I told her that he could just stay in my room because I don't think it's reasonable to charge him money when I'm the one who suggested that he spend it with us. But she said he couldn't do that because he needs to pay if he wants to be with me. She actually says that this time, she's not going to let someone be with me without paying. So I asked her if he pays, can we stay in the same room? And she responded by saying no. And she also said that he can't stay for more than 2 days. Now, I thought this was ridiculous. So I told her that we would find an Airbnb somewhere else. But I'm a broke college student, and between the fees for traveling back home, the winter tuition payment, and rent, I can't possibly also afford to stay in an Airbnb, or even try to split it with my boyfriend. But at the same time, I feel like I need to stand my ground, because she has been very disrespectful to every single one of my friends and exes, and I'm honestly sick of it, so I don't want to just give in to her demands. I'm tempted to tell her if she doesn't let him stay with us without charging him, then I'm not coming back home for Christmas, because I'm tired of her not respecting me as an adult and trying to extort my friends and relationships for money. By the way, this is not the first time she's done something like this, but I also don't want my siblings to feel like I'm abandoning them for a relationship. What should I do? Okay, the mom in this situation sounds absolutely obnoxious. Like seriously, you're gonna act like your house is actually a hotel and be like, okay, you can stay for free, but your boyfriend, oh no, they have to stay for $200 a night. Like that really is her trying to extort him for money. It's not even funny. And the fact that this has even happened before is crazy to me. Who in their right mind would be okay with this kind of behavior? Now, the original poster actually has an update, and they stated that now every single room is now permanently rented out, including her room. So if she did want to come back home for Christmas, she would have to stay in the same bed as her mom, which really sucks because nobody would ever want to do that. And so now it looks like the original poster is just not going to go home, which is honestly like really fantastic news because because that is such a weird setup. Like, this lady couldn't be like, okay, for this 1 week, I'm not gonna have any kind of guests coming over the house, and instead I'm gonna have my daughter and her boyfriend over. Like, I really don't think that would have been hard, and honestly, it would have solved so many problems. So good for you for not having to go, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would just be relieved that I don't have to put up with any of that garbage. Today, I messed up by screaming at my psychologist over the phone, thinking that they were actually another spam phone call. And now I'm completely humiliated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So over the last few weeks, I've been getting multiple spam calls from different phone numbers, the type where you pick up the phone and there's just silence on the other end. I've tried my best to block every single one of them so I don't get bothered anymore, and it worked for a while until I started getting calls from unknown numbers. Now, coincidentally, I also started seeing a psychologist around the same time that I started getting the no caller ID calls. I had gone to my first appointment on a Thursday, talked to her a lot, and she told me that she'd give me a call the following week in order to tell me what she discussed with her higher-ups. I left the appointment and simply went about my day. That day, I got 2 calls from numbers I don't know, which genuinely upset me. Angrily, I decided the next time I will pick up my phone and just scream as loud as I can at the person on the other end. And I think you see exactly where this is going. The same day, while on my way to work, I get another call from an unknown number. I was already extremely angry due to the calls from earlier. Traffic was also horrible, and, well, I was on my way to work. I mean, what did you expect? I pick up the phone, wait a few seconds, no one says anything, and then I yell as loudly as I can for several seconds. Just pure guttural screaming. I proudly hang up the phone and continue with my drive. 2 minutes later, I get another call from an unknown number, and I'm planning to do the same thing I did before, because they clearly didn't get the message. I pick up the phone, and this time, someone does say something. The connection sucks, so I only understand the name of the city my psychologist is located in. At first, I thought it was someone calling me regarding one of the apartment renting listings I was interested in, since I was desperately looking for an apartment in the same city at the time. So I froze in panic and I just hung up the phone. I was so embarrassed that I just yelled at my potential landlord that I just didn't want to deal with it, even if it meant that I wouldn't have a roof over my head. I feel tears forming in my eyes, but I kept driving nonetheless. A couple minutes later, my phone rings again. This time, it's an actual phone number that I don't recognize. I didn't know what to think. I wasn't sure whether it was the same person from before or not, so I was debating whether I should pick up the phone given the massive mess up from earlier. I quickly think about an excuse and just decide to try and answer it. I pick up the phone, and then I hear my psychologist saying that she's calling from the clinic I was going to. Mind you, she said she'd call me the following week, so I didn't expect it to be her calling me. Obviously, I'm 1,000 times more embarrassed than I was before. I mean, I just yelled at the woman who was supposed to help me with my mental health, and now she's definitely convinced that I'm actually insane. But hey, at least I didn't blow my chances at getting an apartment. I let out a deep sigh and I say hello. She then starts explaining that she already called me twice, but she thinks that the connection was faulty, which is really a nice way to put it. I then respond and say that I'm behind the wheel and that my baby sister, which I don't have by the way, had my phone the whole time and I didn't know what she was doing. She said it's not a big deal, and then she calmly explained my treatment plan. And ever since this incident, I've been so embarrassed to even look at her in the eyes, and all I can think about is how loudly I screamed at this poor woman over the phone. Honestly, this is a very funny story if you think about it in hindsight. First of all, I totally understand where you're coming from. I get spam calls all the time, and I have no idea how these people got my number. It's always people that are just trying to sell me something like insurance or other garbage like that, and it's so annoying and it's so frustrating to deal with. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Trust me on that one. I think the one silver lining you can definitely hold on to here is that your psychologist absolutely has ran into more weird situations than that. Like seriously, do you think you're the only person to scream at them on the phone? I'm willing to bet that this is not the first time that's happened, and it will definitely not be the last time either. And sure, you did lie to her about how that noise came out of your phone, but honestly, even if you do decide to fess up, I really don't think they're gonna care that much, to be completely honest. So overall, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself, because honestly, I would be very frustrated in that scenario as well. Because getting spam phone calls like that over and over again is truly infuriating, and I think your frustration is absolutely understandable. My entitled, angry boss demanded that I stay all night until one of the bay doors at our auto shop is fixed and repaired, so I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result, I got so so much overtime pay that I walked away with a massive paycheck. And there was not a single thing my angry boss could do about it. Here's what happened. So for a little bit of backstory, I worked at the time in an oil change place. They had recently moved managers from salaried positions over to hourly positions. And this is because some managers in different cities were just lying and not going to work while getting the same check every payday. And I warned them that if anything, my pay was gonna go way up because I'm here a lot more than 40 hours a week. And they said that they were good with that. Well, one night I get a call at 7 o'clock p.m., which is 2 hours after close, from one of my guys who was in the shop after hours without permission. And I come to find out that he had crashed into the bay door. And as a result, he ended up getting fired. So I came in and investigated. The most relevant fact here was that he bent the door, so there was maybe a 4-inch by 4-inch gap. A house cat could have squeezed through if it really wanted to. I called our door repair guys immediately, and they said their folks were on an emergency after hours call already, and they were about 5 hours away, and that they could be there in the morning. I said that's fine since this wasn't a danger. I mean, the door was in place, not visible from the street. You'd have to be behind our building looking for this kind of thing to find it. Plus, the alarm is still set and motion detectors still work. Anyone that broke in through this metal door with a 4-inch gap would have to need tools and was gonna get in even without the gap. We didn't even keep more than 100 buckets of cash around, and anything expensive to steal was equipment bolted to the floor. So in my mind, we're just gonna deal with this tomorrow, right? Well, obviously no. I called my boss to fill him in, and he said to call the door guys. I told him that I did already, and tried to explain their situation. He interrupted me and told me in super rude and loud words just to call them and not bother him again about it. And for reference, this guy is a massive jerk, and he did not like being called after work or having to do any work ever. He then texted me to rudely say that I better well stay there until they arrive and finish the repair. So since I was single, had no plans, and was now paid hourly, I decided this sounded like easy money. I pulled out 2 comfy office chairs to make a bed or a couch, watched YouTube and did assorted internet scrolling, and slept at normal times pretty comfortably until 8 o'clock in the morning. They showed up around 9 o'clock and fixed the problem pretty quickly, and I was already on my regularly scheduled 8 to 5 shift that day, which I finished. So with that in mind, let's do the math. That overnight waiting from 7 o'clock p.m. until 8 o'clock in the morning was 13 hours, and it was all overtime at time and a half. Then my normal shift was about 9 hours, which was all also at time and a half. So in total, I had about 33 hours of pay for doing absolutely my normal shift, along with some sleeping that was barely even an inconvenience. Well, my boss sees it come payday and tries to give me a yelling over email for trying to rip off the company, sending a message to all of the big bosses as well as HR and payroll. Well, I replied to all of them, explained the situation, including the text message screenshot. Well, suddenly, I'm not the one getting yelled at anymore, and I ended up getting every bit of that overtime pay, despite what my boss wanted to say. Yeah, that boss is a complete idiot. Anyone with a brain could see that this is something that could have easily been fixed the next morning. And guess what? It was. This guy literally just slept at work and got paid way more than he should have just to wait for these guys to come in the morning. Like seriously, this is one of those instances where maliciously complying is like the best thing you could do, because at the end of the day, the original poster got a sweet paycheck, and there was nothing that their entitled, awful boss could do about it. My entitled mother ruined my bachelorette party, causing unnecessary drama amongst my friends, as well as claiming that I betrayed my family, all because I wanted to spend time with my friends in Puerto Rico for my bachelorette party. And now I'm incredibly hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So a few months back, I had a bachelorette trip to Puerto Rico. 2 of my bridesmaids were able to go, and my mother and sister came as well. I asked my mom to be the maid of honor since I thought it would create a closer bond between us getting ready for my wedding. My whole goal was to have everyone get along and just have a good time, but I should have known that this was going to be a disaster. A couple of weeks before my mother started bashing all of my bridesmaids and friends, she was particularly focused on one that was actually going on the trip. I ended up paying for my mom, sister, and my own flight just to try and lift the burden of my mother paying for both herself and my sister. But the plan was that my mother was going to pay for her and my sister's hotel. My friend reached out to everyone to try and plan something for me without me getting involved. Now, I would like to add that I planned the bachelorette trip as the bride. When my friend reached out to my mom and called her, she wanted wanted to help as much as she can. My friend is actually Puerto Rican, so she was going to be a huge help with this trip. At the time, I did not know about this call. My mother called me at 3 in the morning after having that call with my friend to literally tell me she has not been doing her maid of honor duties because she has been observing everyone and everything. She then said as the maid of honor, she should be planning the bachelorette trip. I found this conversation odd, but I said, okay, whatever. I mean, I was relieved that she finally stepped up to help me with the trip. My mom did say before the call ended to not tell my friend she talked to me about this, which I did find odd as well. The next day, my friend called me and told me that she wanted to make sure that I had a great bachelorette party and that to remember it's all about me. She wanted to help me with the excursions I wanted to do and told her my mom wanted to plan as well so they could work together. I saw my mother the next day and she went on a rant that my friend was disrespectful and said she was not letting a little girl control her on this trip and made it seem like something was wrong with my friend and how she did not want to wear her stupid t-shirts during the trip. She started raging and telling me that she doesn't want to go in the rental car with my friend and wants to take an Uber instead. This automatically started stressing me out. She said she didn't like my friend and that she was disrespectful and has mental issues. I ended up calling my friend and asking her if she could cancel the rental and she said that she could not. I created a group chat for the ones attending the trip and my friend started asking questions about what activities we were going to do and also about how excited she was. But you know what? My mom and sister were instantly annoyed. My mom was supposed to plan the activities that we were going to do in Puerto Rico. She refused to let my friend do anything or even participate in helping out. And this is all ignoring the fact that my friend is Puerto Rican. Fast forward to the first day of the bachelorette trip, and when we arrived, my mom's luggage was missing. And this is the one that had all of her toiletries in it. And trust me, she was upset about it. When we got to the hotel, I let everyone rest since it was an early flight. My friend got there a little later in the day, and I met up with her and my other friend in the lobby. I called my mom and sister to meet us downstairs, and so we could go with them to replace the toiletries that were lost and just to have dinner. As me and my two other friends were waiting, my mom came downstairs and stood behind my Puerto Rican friend and said hi to her so low that she literally could not hear her. I then hinted to her that my mom was standing over and behind her while she was sitting on the lobby couch, which I thought was a little bit weird. She then turned around and said hello, and my mom instantly said, "Okay, I'm leaving now. Go be with your friends." And she literally just ran off, and my sister didn't even say a word. Now, when I tell you the energy was so off, you could literally cut the tension in the air with a knife. I asked my friend what was going on with her and my mom because something just felt really off. She told me she did not really know her, so she did not understand what was happening. So I just decided to go to the bar with my friends and wait for my mom and sister to get back. 5 minutes later, I get a text message from my mom. She's saying to me, "Shame on you. You betrayed your family. You chose a nobody over your own family. I am disappointed and your sister and I are out of the wedding." So I responded and said that I did not betray anybody, and I asked what the problem was. But I was then ignored and met with radio silence. I started crying hysterically because I did not want my bachelorette to be like this. My friends tried to cheer me up and took me out to dinner. I decided to let things cool off and try and smooth things over in the morning with my mom and sister. Well, I went to my mom and sister's room and I knocked on the door several times, and I kept going back to knock on the door. I also called each of them and I still got no answer. I even waited around the lobby to see if I ran into them and nothing. I called both of them later again in the afternoon, and finally my sister picked up. I asked them if they were okay and if we can just squash whatever happened and move forward with the plans. I asked why they did not answer me for hours, and they said they were sleeping, which I knew was a lie because I heard someone look through the peephole when I knocked earlier. My sister said they are not doing any of the activities that I wanted to do and that they were having lunch and would not tell me where they were. And at this point, I felt like garbage. My mom didn't plan any of the things that she said she was going to plan. My friend even texted and reached out to my mom and apologized for whatever my mom thought she did. I mean, she even tried to call her and my mom just didn't answer. My friend scrambled and tried to make the best of the rest of the trip for me, while my mom and sister went missing in action. The day before we had to leave and go home, my sister reached out to get their plane tickets, which I purchased. I sent it to them and was immediately upset. My mom tricked me into putting my credit card down for both her and my sister's hotel. They ignored me during the entire trip, and now they demanded their plane tickets. I decided to change my flight and leave leave earlier. I could not sit on the plane with my mom and sister and act like this was all normal. My sister called and asked if I was going to get an Uber to the airport, and I told her no, I have a different flight. Well, my mom finally appeared and called me and said so many hurtful things. My mom told me I was always disloyal, how I interpreted everything wrong, I overthink, and I don't care about her and my sister. She said that the way I was feeling was wrong and that I'm a liar. She then hung up right in my face. My friend started to tell me about the phone conversation that she had with my mom prior. She didn't tell me out of respect for my mother because my mom asked her not to tell me about the phone conversation. My friend said my mom was talking badly about me, my fiance's family, and how I was planning my wedding. And this really left my friend in a really awkward position. Ever since that trip, I have not spoken to my mom or my sister, and they did not show up to my wedding. I only get a text message from my sister to tell me to pay both her and my mom's phone bill once a month, and that is literally it. But I'm still so upset about how they ruined my bachelorette party. That is seriously insane. Like, why would they go all the way to Puerto Rico just to act like this? Did they not think you were gonna spend time with your friends? Like, what did they think was gonna happen when you finally got over to Puerto Rico? Were you just gonna sit in your hotel and stare at your mom and sister as they complained about all the things your friends apparently have been doing? Which, by the way, they haven't done a single thing to these people. Like, seriously, your mom and sister are super entitled. They not only didn't plan a single thing for you to do in Puerto Rico, but they also ruined the trip entirely. And that is seriously such an awful way to treat a family member. Also, I think this is obvious, but I think you would be an absolute fool to continue paying for anybody's phone bill. These people are using you left and right, and the way they're treating you is absolutely unacceptable. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would not only stop paying their phone bill, but I would also go no contact. And if they have a problem with that, then honestly, that's their problem. They literally use you for a free vacation. They did all of this just so they could go to Puerto Rico and spend their own time on your dime. And the fact that they try to raise all this drama right when you land in Puerto Rico is honestly insane to me. But regardless, I'm so sorry you had to deal with this, and hopefully you don't have to deal with them ever again.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I feel completely taken advantage of by my husband, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been married for 5 years, and recently I've been getting resentful about how little he does and how difficult he is to talk about this. I'm halfway through my master's program, I'm taking 13 credits, and my classes are at night. Plus, I have 3 part-time day jobs that add up to full-time work. Meanwhile, my husband is finishing a bachelor's degree part-time and currently isn't working as his job is seasonal. Next semester, he has student teaching, and most of my time is spent at work, in class, or doing homework, whereas my husband is home all day except for 1 day a week. There are some things he does around the house, but not many. Usually, he cooks dinner, and he is the one who goes grocery shopping, but sometimes he'll get upset if I ask him to go to the store, saying that he has too much homework, which bothers me because many days he's just on his phone or playing games. He also does laundry, but only once every few months when he's run out of underwear. I mean, that's near the end of the list. He doesn't even fold the laundry. We've had 2 hampers of clean laundry for months, and our dirty laundry is piling on the floor. The dishes pile in the sink until the weekend, and he decides in the morning that I'll wash the dishes while he makes us eggs, or vice versa sometimes. Or if he needs the sink to make dinner, but it's full of dishes, I have to wash them, otherwise he'll complain a lot, or won't start until it's so late that dinner isn't until 9:00 p.m. He doesn't clean the bathroom or sweep, he leaves spills and crumbs on the stove, which has caused us to have mice, and honestly our house is disgusting. I also take care of the mental load, meaning that I make sure all the bills get paid, I make the grocery list, I decide that the sheets need to get made, and I go through all the mail. I also have to remind him of really basic things, like not putting a baking dish that's incredibly hot on our leather couch, and I'm talking so hot that it would need a pot holder just to handle it. This workload distribution feels incredibly unfair, given that he is in undergrad, part-time, and not working. He says the reason he hasn't gotten a job all semester is because it has to fit with student teaching next semester, which for anyone unfamiliar is basically working full-time, unpaid as a teacher. He also states it's because he's gonna need time off to see our families for the holidays. Last night, I told him I'm nervous to talk to him about lining up a job job for next semester. Because for context, in similar situations, he's gotten really angry. He only addressed this concern by saying, "You can ask me about it," and didn't even address the concern about looking for a job before he becomes too busy. Instead, he informed me that if he starts getting too overwhelmed and failing student teaching, he will need to cut back on working hours. I said, "Okay, but I don't know how much you are saying you're gonna work, and what I'm hearing is that you might not really be working." We went back and forth about this for a while, and the argument got heated. He also said we couldn't live off of our savings, which he knows I am not okay with if we're both capable of working. He did say that we should drop it and come back to it the next day, but not wanting to extend the fight another day, I pushed to resolve things, and I know I shouldn't have done that. In the argument, he said I'm going to have to be the one making dinner during his student teaching semester, so I reminded him that I also will be in class 4 nights out of the week, so that might not work. He then said to me, "Well, then one of us is going to have to work less." And he wasn't even willing to mention any of my other solutions like meal prep to try and save time. He ended up saying that I don't understand his side, but he understands mine. And he does that a lot, and he's really condescending about it too. I feel like he totally ignored my concerns, which is what that conversation was originally about. I feel like he frequently flips the table on me. I end up crying and apologizing, and he has ignored me ever since. He did not apologize or take any responsibility for any part of that argument. I feel like I pull significantly more weight than him, and he still always has a problem with me. The more I think about it, the more angry and resentful I am. So I need an outsider's perspective on this. What should I do? So first of all, I don't think you've done anything wrong. It really seems like you're the only person pulling their weight in this house, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. Like, it really seems like your husband is just not doing enough to make ends meet. Like, this guy is not nearly working as hard as you are in all aspects of your life. You have a master's program and 3 jobs. Meanwhile, this guy's finishing up his bachelor's degree part-time, mind you, and he doesn't have a job right now to help out around the house. Speaking of around the house, why is he not doing more? Unless I'm missing something here, this guy has all the time in the world to keep things tidy and try and keep the house clean in some kind of way. So truly, you are not at fault here. Your husband is taking your kindness and your hard work for granted, and in my opinion, that is absolutely unacceptable. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for asking someone not to park next to me at an empty car wash? Here's what happened. So I was on my way to do Uber and Lyft as my side gig in my 2020 GT sedan that is surprisingly super roomy and very spacious. It was early and I decided to wash my car beforehand, which is an easy task as the car was completely empty to do rideshare. My favorite car wash that I'm a member at had just opened, so I'm the first one there. So I pull in and drive through and I get it washed. After I pull around and park in one of the 22 vacuum spots, I start to wipe it dry and vacuum the inside. After I finish quickly wiping it down, I go to vacuum. So I open all the doors and trunk to make it faster so I can get back on the road. I get through half the car, so I close those doors and trunk and move to the other side. As I'm grabbing the hose, I see a car start to pull up behind me, which is a late model Prius. It beeps at me to move out of the way so he can pull into the spot next to me where my doors are open. Now at this time, there is only one other person parked at the opposite end of me 8 spots down. I pointed to all the empty spots that he had to choose from, and as he rolled his window down, I asked him, "Can you park somewhere else? Do you have to park right next to me?" And I said this out of common courtesy. I didn't want either of us to hit each other's car. He didn't say anything as he started to pull up, and as I started to close my doors, his window was still down. So I asked him again, "Can you go to another one? I don't want us to be that close." He then started to argue with me and throw a fit, stating that he understood, you know, if he had a huge truck or something like that. Basically telling me that no, he wasn't gonna move. He then said, "I'll only be a little bit," to which I did not argue and just said to him, "Okay, that's fine. It's just the principle of the situation. I thought I would at least ask." I came to terms with the situation and went back to finishing vacuuming my car. Meanwhile, this man is still huffing and puffing and griping the entire time. He wiped off his windshield and grabbed 2 handfuls of trash in his completely trash-filled car. Then he proceeded to start to leave, saying to me, "See, that wasn't wasn't so long, but you could obviously tell that he cut it short and had plans to clean out all the trash and whatnot. I just tell him again, sorry for the misunderstanding and I hope you have a great day. And at this point, I'm finishing vacuuming out my back seat. He then starts to argue with me as I'm bent over vacuuming. I decided not to say anything and let him just have the last word and leave. But then he tells me, you should be careful who you upset and argue with. Next time, they might have something you'll regret. Like it was supposed to scare me and give him the ultimate last word. Now, for reference, without actually saying it, this guy has a type of weapon that is used for self-defense that is very handheld, if you know what I mean. So when he said this to me, it honestly couldn't be more perfect as I looked him in the eyes and I told him, sir, I have one of those as well. And I lifted up my shirt to show him the weapon that I had that featured an extended mag in its holster. For reference, I work in an armory at my main job, so I'm used to it being on me, and I keep it on me when I do rideshare because you never know what happens. His immediate response was to say, oh, I'm sorry, have a great day. He then got in his Prius and he finally left. So what do you think? Am I the jerk for asking him to park somewhere else and leave space? Was I in the wrong for notifying him that the situation he gave me, not to upset or argue with random people, was the exact situation that he was in? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Who in their right mind would make some kind of veiled threat against you and not think that you would have some kind of protection yourself? Like that guy in the Prius is a complete idiot. There's no reason to act that way, and truly, he could have parked his car literally anywhere else. It's not that big of a deal. There are so many spots available. But this guy instead wanted to be a jerk, and he wanted to make some kind of statement towards you as if you don't have personal protection yourself. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you did the right thing to literally defend yourself against this guy's weird implications, because what he said was not okay. And in my opinion, he was absolutely out of line. My girlfriend said that I was being unreasonable when I asked her not to use my Wi-Fi for just 5 minutes. And now I'm not sure if I was out of line or if there was anything that I did wrong, because as of right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my girlfriend and we live in the United Kingdom, and the area of our town that we live in can only get basic Wi-Fi speeds. This means if I want to play an online video game, it will only work if nothing else is connected to the Wi-Fi. I was playing on the game last night and it was working fine. Then it started lagging and I noticed my girlfriend was using her phone. I quickly asked her if she could use data for 5 minutes or even just wait 5 minutes until I was finished. For reference, she gets unlimited data. She apologized but kept using her phone. I lost the game and then she put her phone away. I asked her if she wanted to do anything and she just said no. So I then asked if she minded that I have one more game quickly, which would take under 10 minutes, and she just said that was fine. After I had been on for around 1 minute, she starts using her phone and lags it again. I ask if she's connected to the Wi-Fi and she just doesn't respond. Once the game is over, I was annoyed at the fact that she ignored me and annoyed at the fact that she knew it was causing the game to lag, yet she kept doing it anyways. I asked why she ignored me and she said that she didn't. She then just said that she didn't want to use data and I shouldn't be asking her to not use the Wi-Fi. So I pointed out that it was for 5 minutes, so it's hardly like I was telling her to never use it again. I just thought that she would do me a small favor. She just repeated that she did nothing wrong and I was unreasonable for asking her not to use it. So honestly, am I being unreasonable here? What should I do? I personally don't think that your request was unreasonable at all, and it seems like your girlfriend was doing that on purpose. She was doing this weird passive-aggressive thing where she's deciding, you know what, I don't want you to play video games, so I'm gonna make sure that it lags. And it's convenient that she was only on her phone when you were playing video games. And if that's the truth, and if she really does feel that way about you playing games while she's there, then honestly, that's so immature and so petty. Like, why not just communicate to your boyfriend and be like, hey, let's spend time together, instead of you spending more time on another video game? So no, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think your request was completely reasonable, and if anything, your girlfriend is the one who's being unreasonable, because I really don't think that you did anything wrong. An entitled jerk follows my friend around the store, claiming that my friend wasn't actually disabled even though he was, and that he didn't need the mobility scooter that he was riding. And I'm seriously blown away that somebody could be this entitled. Here's what happened. So back in the early 2010s, my friend, we'll just call him Jim, that's not his real name, and his family were moving across the state for his dad's work. Now, Jim has a disability that makes him wheelchair bound. At first glance, he looks like he should be healthy, but in reality, it is is quite the opposite. This is going to be important later on. They had sent their stuff ahead in a truck, but still had a bunch in their van, and Jim's wheelchair had stuff stacked on top of it. For reference, the seat was folded and the chair was fine. While they were traveling, they decided to stop at a grocery store to grab some supplies for the new place, as they were moving someplace rural, and there were no affordable grocery stores at their destination. At the time, Jim could walk, albeit very slow and with help, but it was at the risk of falling and getting seriously hurt, as he couldn't catch himself and he was over 6 feet tall. So when they got to the store, Jim was helped out of the van so that he could go inside and cool off. As they were driving through the desert in late August and early September, his folks helped him inside and to one of the available mobility scooters, seeing as his chair was buried amongst all their stuff. So off went Jim in the scooter that had the approximate speed of an inebriated snail. He was starting to cruise around the store when he was spotted by a middle-aged gentleman who is the entitled jerk of this story. And this entitled jerk was walking with his elderly mother. She was obviously having some trouble walking, but it just so happened that Jim was in possession of the last functioning scooter, so she wasn't able to use it. So, seeing Jim riding around the store on this scooter, and also assuming that he was just some teenage kid goofing off, this guy told Jim to get off and let his mother use the scooter. Now, Jim was used to this kind of interaction, so he calmly explained that no, he wasn't just goofing off in a scooter, and that he actually needed it to get around. Well, this entitled jerk then ranted about how Jim was younger, and his mom was in awful pain, so Jim should be respectful of his elders. But Jim naturally just disagreed. He again explained his disability and then drove away. Though not very common, this sort of interaction was not his first, but everyone before had been very understanding of the situation. But that was definitely not the case with this entitled jerk. As Jim perused the wares of the grocery store, this entitled jerk actually followed him around, almost shouting at him for how disrespectful he was. And he didn't think that anything was actually wrong with Jim while leaving his mother at the front door. Now, fun fact about Jim, I have very rarely ever seen him get genuinely angry. I've seen him get upset at a video game or about the state of the United States healthcare system, but he has a very unique ability to let stupid people and their antics roll off of his back like a duck with water. So Jim did exactly what he does best and just blocks this guy out. And trust me, he had a lot of practice doing this, being the oldest child. Well, the entitled jerk kept up his antics, and Jim just pretended that he didn't exist. Eventually, Jim found his parents as they were checking out, and the entitled jerk ran back to his mom after seeing Jim's dad, who, by the way, is not a very small man. Jim and his family, just wanting to be done with their travels, bought their supplies and got out of Dodge. Every time Jim thinks of that story, he says out loud, "You know what the worst part was? He followed me and harassed me, rather than taking care of his mom, who looked like she was in awful pain. If I could have, I probably would have slugged him just for that." And honestly, with all things considered, I don't think I'd blame Jim in the slightest. Yeah, that's an insane story. Who in their right mind would follow someone around a grocery store and be like, "Nope, you're faking it. You don't actually need that mobility scooter. You're just a stupid teenager." Like, this guy seriously has his priorities mixed up. Here he is yelling at someone he doesn't even know, while his mother is literally being left by herself. Like, seriously, what a massive jerk. Now, seriously, more to the point, it is insane to me that anyone would actually do this. Just because somebody looks like they don't have a disability doesn't mean that they're not struggling with something that could be very serious. Like, I don't know about you, but this is not something I would want to try and even entertain when it comes to figuring out if someone needs the scooter or not. Like, you're just setting up a really weird precedent, and it's honestly so unbelievably toxic. So good for your friend for not letting this get to him, because I know if I had somebody screaming at me in the store claiming that I didn't actually need that scooter, I probably would have responded in a much worse way.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My entitled supervisor demands that I work slower just to impress the boss so that I can have something to do throughout the week. So I decide to maliciously comply, and as a result, I barely did any work and instead sat online watching movies and playing games. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I have always been an incredibly hard and efficient worker, always getting stuff done faster than expected and going above and beyond. My program for college required us to go to class for 6 months of the year and work full-time in our field for the remaining 6 months. As a freshman in college, I got my first job at an automotive supplier. My first semester was fairly slow, mainly due to the fact that the person who was supposed to train train me went on medical leave my first week there and didn't come back for almost a year, and they were not replaced. However, in my second semester, things really took a turn for the worse. Two key things happened at the start of my next semester. For starters, I was moved to a new department, and secondly, the company began merging with one of their competitors. Now, when the company began the merger, they decided they were going to move everything at my site to the other company's headquarters in another nearby city. The first thing that moved was the vast majority of the equipment my new department used. The upper management made the brilliant decision to leave the 4 members of my department at the old site until the move was complete. So this meant we had essentially nothing that we could work on. And this is right when my malicious compliance comes into play. After about 2 weeks of sitting around, my supervisor finally came up with a small task for me. I completed this in about 4 hours, which I thought was pretty good for something that I'd never done and had very little training on. So I went to her and I said that I'm done. Well, the supervisor responded in an angry and panicked fashion. She said, "Done? This was supposed to take you all week. I don't have anything else for you to do now. I need you to look busy in case the boss walks by. Next time I give you something to do, you need to drag it out longer so that you look busy." Now, young, naive me was initially confused by getting reprimanded for working too fast, but you know what? What the boss says goes. A week or so later, and I was given another task. I was to take thousands of these tiny devices that we use and dispose of them by detonating them in a concrete box. And this is one of those things that was just too volatile to just throw it out, so we had to discharge it first. The supervisor reminded me, "And remember, take your time and don't go through them too fast." Now, this was obviously just busy work to get me out of the way, but the great thing with this task was that it had to take place in the back garage that nobody ever went in, just to avoid the obvious danger of people walking in while I was setting off a controlled detonation. I could have easily hooked up 20 of these bad boys at a time and set them off every 5 to 10 minutes, and finishing the whole batch in about a week. But you know what? I had to look busy. So instead, I set off about 5 to 10 of these once an hour and spent the rest of the time on my phone playing games, watching Netflix, as well as listening to music, all while getting paid double minimum wage at the time. I managed to stretch that project for the remaining 2.5 months that I was there, finishing just in time for the end of the semester. Anytime someone asked me for help on something else, I politely told them that I would when I was done, but it might be a while, because the supervisor told me not to go through these too fast. They usually ended up finding some other bored student to help them out. I think the supervisor genuinely forgot I worked there by the end, because when I stopped into her office in my last week to let her know I had finished the task, she seemed very surprised and incredibly confused to see me. The company ended up paying me $10,000, which is a lot of money for a student at the time, just to sit on my phone all day for 3 months. I sent an email to my supervisor, my boss, and HR at the end of the semester, letting them know that I would not be returning the next semester. In my best corporate language, I let them know that I was leaving to pursue opportunities that would better utilize my time and skills. I found out later, when several of us ran into each other at a jobs fair, that all but 2 of the other students had also quit at the end of the semester, purely out of boredom or uncertainty that we would even have jobs to come back to. The company did not handle the transition well and could never give us straight answers about where, when, or if we would ever be brought back. And honestly, I seriously am so glad that I don't have to deal with that place any longer. Yeah, that sounds like a really boring place to work. You know a place is awful and you're not going to gain anything by working there except for a paycheck, when the manager herself says don't work too hard and just pretend that you're doing something to try and pass the time. Like, that seriously must have been miserable, and I don't blame you for quitting. But regardless, it sounds like you got a sweet paycheck out of doing nothing. I mean, sitting around and watching Netflix and playing games on your phone, that sounds like an awesome way to earn some money. And considering how little that you actually did during that time at that company, that might as well have been your job responsibilities. Today, I messed up by spending almost $25,000 on a friend's expense over Discord. And now I'm at a point where I might go bankrupt just to help support them. And I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 26-year-old male, and I have spent close to $25,000 trying to keep my friend out of poverty. I don't know what to do, and I feel like if I stop, then I'm indirectly responsible for making her homeless or worse. This all started back in September of this year when I met my friend on Discord. When I first met her, she was simply a broke college student, just trying to make her way through life. Later on, several things happened to her in succession that resulted in me wanting to bail her out. First, honestly, she tried to sell some of her stuff with some of her friends, and the friends ended up stealing her car and all of the other stuff in the car. Now, she managed to get her car back, but the friends already sold all of her stuff so that they could have illegal substance money, if you know what I mean. So I bailed her out by giving her money for an Uber. Next, she said she wanted to go visit her grandfather before he passed away, and she was unable to pay for travel expenses to get there. Once again, I ended up paying for her trip. She was extremely grateful for it, but I still asked for nothing in return. Then her car broke down, and she had no insurance because it was too expensive, and I decided to help her out there as well. Then she said she had to go to the ER because she's anemic and has seizures sometimes. She didn't have health insurance before, so I helped out with that as well, and this was covering both the insurance and the cost of the ER visit itself. Then, after her grandfather passed away, she wanted to go back home for his will reading, and I paid for those travel expenses happily. But now we get to the part where the costs are getting unreasonable, but might make some sense if anybody else is in this kind of situation. After her grandfather passed away, he left my friend a 1960s Ford to her in his will. At the very least, it's something that she can sell and get enough money to live comfortably. Unfortunately, she isn't getting it because her mother successfully convinced a court at the hearing regarding the car that my friend should not get it. According to my friend, her mom is a lawyer, and she had 3 lawyers on her side arguing for her. Not only did the mother win, but she then went on to countersue my friend for defamation of character and legal fees. She is now getting sued for $10,000, and that is not including the $2,000 that she had to pay for the court costs just for the hearing itself. And this also doesn't include the nearly $900 of travel costs for going to this hearing, nor does it include the food or anything like that. I have spent nearly $25,000 on this woman, and it's getting to a point where I can't take it anymore. If I give her more money, I will go broke myself. If I don't do anything, she'll be arrested, become homeless, or both, or even something worse. Now, before you ask, no, my friend does not have a job because they are too busy with their classes. Until the semester ends, they literally cannot change and modify their class schedule to accommodate. They are currently completely reliant on me to fund everything for them. I've set up a GoFundMe page to help out their issue, but I'm doubtful that will even help out, or if enough people will see it to try and help out. I've invested too much money and it's going to bankrupt me. What should I do? Okay, the original poster has got to stop what they're doing. This person is scamming you. They are 100% taking you for every penny. First of all, you don't even know this person. Like, there's a very high likelihood that you're getting catfished because what you're describing is not normal. No Discord friend is going to ask you for tens of thousands of dollars just to help them out of their very niche situation that might not even be true. Like, seriously, these people are playing you for a fool. They are taking all of your money and they're guilt tripping you in the process so that you keep paying. You're completely convinced by this story that if you stop giving them money, they're somehow going to become homeless and they're not going to be able to get by. But that seriously is a complete lie. I am seriously convinced that they are completely scamming you and they are not actually in any kind of like financial dire straits. Like, they are seriously selling you a song and I would not give them another cent. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be blocking these people immediately and moving on with my life because I seriously believe that these people are scamming you for a lot of money. And if you know what's good for you and your financial future, you would get out as soon as you can. My entitled flatmate has been stealing my stuff, taking whatever he feels like without asking first, and then once he's confronted about it, he doesn't even show any kind of remorse in the slightest. And I'm honestly so disappointed by this guy's actions. Here's what happened. So this situation happened literally today, so I'm still quite mad about it. So me and my boyfriend are currently living in a student residence, specifically a 3-bedroom apartment. We occupy 2 of the rooms, and the other room has been empty until a month ago. We've lived with our new flatmate for only a month, but he's proven to be a disaster since the beginning. For example, he's been using our kitchen utensils and leaving them dirty in the sink. He's been using my towels to shower, which is one of the grossest things I could ever imagine, and so many other things. But the worst part about this is him taking our stuff without asking, and I mean without even mentioning it. The first day that he arrived, we showed him his kitchen cabinet, yet later that same day, we've noticed him going through our cabinet and using our spices. He could have asked for permission, but I didn't want to create drama out of him taking some pepper. But you know what? Later on, it got way worse. Over the time, I've noticed that there were a lot of used tea bags in the trash, which was a very specific type of tea that I loved, but I haven't haven't drank for a long time. Well, I checked the package and guess what? That's right, half the packages are missing. And it was at that moment I went through pretty much all of my stuff. He used some of my laundry detergent, as well as some of my conditioner. A bottle of sriracha sauce was missing, as well as a $20 bottle of Italian oil that my boyfriend brought from back home. This guy used it and didn't even close it up properly. Now, of course, we had a talk with him today, and he knew exactly what he's been doing, because as soon as we asked him not to take our things, he said to us, "Oh yeah, sure, that's common sense," without even looking at us when we were talking. No remorse, no excuse, nothing. The issue was not even sharing stuff, but rather him consistently taking our things without ever mentioning that he did that or that he needed some of our stuff. And yes, he sort of admitted to doing that, since his response to me saying, "I'm really disappointed about how rude your behavior is," was just to say, "Oh yeah, sure, I understand." And so here we are now, locking our rooms from now on and hoping that he would not go from stealing tea to stealing our money. Yeah, that guy's a massive jerk. I can't imagine doing that to a roommate, let alone roommates that you just got to know. Like literally, this is their first interaction with you. They have not even gotten to know you yet, and they already know you as a thief and somebody who's gonna steal from them. I don't know about you, but that's a horrible first impression to make. And that is seriously such a shame, because now the roommates have to be on high alert and make sure that this jerk doesn't go through their stuff anymore. Like, that's not okay, and honestly, this guy's gotta go. So hopefully you're able to get him out of your house sooner than later, because what you described is completely inappropriate, and you shouldn't have to live your life trying to hide your belongings from your roommate. Am I the jerk for going on a prepaid for vacation after my boyfriend's father passed away? Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 4 years and have been living together for the past 18 months. Our lease is up at the end of this month, and we were hoping to have purchased a house by now, but that just didn't happen. So we decided to just renew our lease and keep the house hunt going. I've also had a very stressful year career-wise, so this fall a few friends and I booked a girls' trip to Mexico, and we're gonna go on a yoga wellness retreat. We are leaving next Thursday, and we are already looking forward to it. The week before Thanksgiving, my boyfriend's dad unexpectedly passed away. My boyfriend immediately flew out to be with his mom and siblings, and he ended up staying there for Thanksgiving instead of coming home, which I completely understand. Due to the holiday and scheduling conflicts with other relatives, the funeral wasn't scheduled until the Friday after I leave for my trip. When he told me the date of the funeral, I reminded him that I would be gone. He then asked me if there was any way I could reschedule the trip or get a refund, and I told him that I would look into it. But unfortunately, the trip was booked through a group rate and it was 100% non-refundable, and none of my friends wanted to go through the hassle of rescheduling, which really sucks, but I do get it. I saved a lot of money to take this trip, and I really need the escape, and if I cancel, I don't get my money back at all. I explained all of this to my boyfriend, and he asked me what I was gonna do. I apologized and told him that I think I'm going on the trip because I don't want that money to go away for nothing. Now, all of this was over the phone because he was still with his family, and he told me that we would talk more when he got back. Well, when he came back home, we talked about it, and I apologized so many times when I was explaining why I was still going on the trip. He seemed to understand and told me that it was fine. But when I asked him when we were going to sign papers to renew our lease, because I want that done before I leave, he said he's not doing that anymore. He said that he came back to figure some things out at work, and then he's flying back for the funeral and will be staying with his mom while he figures some things out. I asked him why he didn't talk to me about this first, and he said that he's talking to me about it right now. He said his mom needs help, so he's going to stay with her. I asked him what I'm supposed to do about a place to live, and he told me to figure it out with my friends on our vacation. I told him that he's pushing me in a bad situation and that he seemed fine with me going on the trip and missing the funeral, but he said he wasn't going to beg me to cancel my trip and that I made that decision on my own, so he's making this decision for himself. I told him he's being a jerk and should have talked to me about it first, but he said that I'm the one who prioritized drinking on a beach over being at his dad's funeral. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yes, the original poster is 100% the jerk in my opinion. They are prioritizing a trip to Mexico instead of supporting their boyfriend. Like, I can't even believe you're asking this question in the first place. Like, yes, you are 100% the jerk, and I think your boyfriend's right to basically say, you know what, I don't really want to be with you anymore. Like, that's kind of what this is leading to, and you know what, if I was the boyfriend in this scenario, I would probably feel the same way. So yes, you are absolutely a jerk, and and you just cost yourself your relationship by going to Mexico instead of being there for your boyfriend. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.